Welcome to this meeting of the Maidenhead Management Development Committee on the 18th of September 2025. My name is Councillor Sian Martin. I will be chairing the meeting. There might well be a fire test or fire bell test during the meeting. So for those online, if we go offline, it should be not too long before we come back on. So this meeting is held in person via Zoom and streamed live to the public on YouTube. I remind all attendees that participation in the meeting indicates consent to the audio and video being streamed live and acknowledgement that after the meeting it will continue to be available in the public domain. I say we're not expecting the fire alarm to sound this evening, but we might this time. However, it does. May I ask you to leave in an orderly fashion and rendezvous across the road outside of the library next to the fountain. That's not for the test. Firstly, it would be useful if all voting members and officers could introduce themselves so that public are aware of who is who in the meeting and the role they're undertaking. So obviously I've introduced myself, I'm Sian Martin. If I could go to my left.
Yep, I'm James Cross, Major Sites Team Leader.
Michael Easton, Principal Planning Officer, Major Teams.
Member for Bray and a voting member of this panel.
Simon Bond, substituting and member of the panel for tonight.
Councillor Gurch Singh, voting member of the panel.
Hello, good evening. I'm Councillor Jack Douglas. I'm also a voting member of the panel.
Lawrence Ellis, Democratic Services, and the clerk to this committee meeting.
Thank you, everyone. I request that meeting participants do not speak unless I specifically invite you to do so. Once I've invited you to speak, before you do so, please state your name and the capacity in which you are speaking if appropriate. I will also ask officers to speak at appropriate times. If any individual attempts to disrupt the meeting, I'm able to use my powers in the Constitution to adjourn the meeting or have the individual removed. I would also like to remind councillors that to improve our time and effectiveness as a committee, I'd ask you to please limit the repetition of points or questions which have already been raised by others. Where possible, please forward all new points or questions which you would like raised during your request to speak. We'll now start on the agenda items. Do we have any apologies for absence?
On my attendees.
I'm sorry. And online we have, sorry, Lawrence.
We got Catriona.
So we've got Catriona online. Sorry about that, Catriona. Is that just Catriona?
Adrian.
And Adrian as well, planning. So do we have any apologies?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Apologies received from Councillor Helen Taylor, and she is substituted by Councillor Simon Bond.
Cashmere, no. No. Thank you. And do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Chair. This morning I had a conversation with the operations manager at St Mary's, which is an adjacent site to Sierra House. I also know one of the objectors personally, Gary Taylor, who sat in the public gallery. We've known each other for years. He's used to be a landlord. I used to rent an office in the building there, St Andrew's House. We've corresponded, and I bumped into him on the high street earlier today and had a conversation, but I'm here with an open mind and not predetermined. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Any others? Councillor Gerstein?
Yes, just wanted to declare that I've had conversations in the past with agents connected with the applicant site on the first application, but I've come here with an open mind. Thank you.
Is that everyone? And are we happy to approve agenda item number 3, the minutes? All happy? Thank you. 4, which is application reference 24-01017, which is St Mary's Walk. So if I could hand over to Michael, please, for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We all know this site as Sierra House. This application has been in for over 12 months. It's actually gone through a number of improvements and iterations to ensure it complies with the site allocations policy in the Borough Local Plan. Next slide, please. This is basically an application for demolition of the existing 4-storey office building and redevelopment to provide a new part 5-storey, part 7-storey building with basement for use class E, of approximately 9,000 square metres of gross internal area. through the realignment of St Mary's Walk, landscaping improvements to public realm, cycle parking and ancillary development thereto. Next slide, please. Recommendation here is to grant planning permission subject to a host of conditions which are set out in section 14 of the committee report and also to a section 106. Now on that, the heads of terms have been drawn up by ourselves in liaison with the applicant, and the applicant is satisfied with those heads of terms. And so lawyers, Trowers, are working on our behalf, drafting a 106 subject to tonight's decision. Part 2 of this is such amendments as considered appropriate to ensure the acceptable implementation of the development. So any tweaks are reminded, we are delegated authority to do that too. Next slide, please, James. Update sheet. Members will be aware there is an update sheet on the council website. I won't actually go through it, just with the salient points. We have a 5-page update sheet. Now, they are mainly to the first one is the easement rights on St Mary's Walk in Maidenhead. The council has been copied in to a letter dated the 10th of September from the owners of the apartments on St Mary's Walk to Freshwater Group of Companies, raising concerns regarding the legal easement rights over the fire escape route and route to and from the refuse storage area situated underneath and the rear of Sierra House. And they raised 4 points there. The applicant's lawyers have prepared a response on behalf of the Freshwater Group of Companies, which has been shared with the council. And again, that's all set out on pages 1 and 2 of the update sheet. I have no intention of repeating them because everything's in the public domain on the update sheet. In addition to the above, the applicant sent an email to Mr. Taylor, who is acting on behalf of the residents of the apartments on St Mary's Walk on Tuesday, the 16th of September, 2 days ago, regarding continued access to the bin stores and the fire escape stairs on the western side of Sierra House. Setting out quite clearly they still have and will lawfully have access to those throughout. In terms of our response, the contents of the letters from the owners of the apartments at St Mary's Walk to Freshwater Group of Companies are noted, as is the response from the applicant's lawyer and the email sent by the applicant to Mr. Taylor on Tuesday, 16th of September. This is a civil law matter. This is not a planning matter, and it's not a material consideration in the determination of this application. Furthermore, we've had objections from the same body of residents to the stopping up order application, and that's to the Department of Transport. And they set out four reasons why. The officer's response to that, again, is set out on page 3. The residents' objection to the stopping up order, there appears to be some, it is noted, there appears to be some confusion from the residents of the access rights to the proposal. And will not have, and ultimately, the proposals will not have any negative impact. The residents' comments raise the matter of prematurity for the stopping up of the order application. It's important to note that the stopping up order cannot be made until this planning application has been determined. The residents' comments on prematurity are therefore incorrect. We've also received a further objection from residents of number 8, St Mary's Walk, and that's set out on page 4. And that person is repeating objections that have been submitted through the consultation period in terms of daylight and overbearing impact. All those objections have been covered in full in the committee report. Then there's a request for additional amended conditions by the residents of the apartments. One of those is about pedestrian access between Providence Place and the High Street via St Mary's Walk to be maintained throughout the demolition and construction phases. We've been in the discussions with the applicant. We've drafted a condition. So it's recommended to the members tonight there's an additional condition in addition to the other conditions in section 14. Now that is here. Pedestrian access between Providence Place and the High Street via St Mary's Walk shall be maintained throughout the demolition and construction phases. And the reasons for that are in the interest of the amenities of surrounding occupiers during the demolition and construction phase of the development in accordance with policies IF2 and QP3 of the Borough Local Plan. And that's the update sheet in the public domain that covers the concerns, the late concerns raised by the residents of St Mary's Walk. Thank you, James. So basically looking now at the overview, part one of the application. The site is identified within policy HO1 of the Borough Local Plan as site allocation AL3. The proposed development complies with the policy HO1 and requirements of the site allocation. Other material considerations relating to flood risk, surface water drainage, sustainability, ecology, noise and air quality are all considered acceptable. The economic benefits, which we'll go through later, proposed development, office development, are considered to be significant. The offset payment is calculated at approximately £31,059. This is based on a carbon price of £69 per tonne and is payable to the council's carbon offset fund prior to the commencement of the proposed development, and that would feed through into a Section 106 agreement. The public benefits of the proposed development sufficiently outweigh the less than substantial harm caused to Maidenhead Town Centre Conservation Area and the neighbouring non-designated heritage asset of St Mary's Church. Therefore, it's recommended for planning permission to be approved, subject to a Section 106 being signed and completed. Looking at the actual proposed development itself, what proposes for a part 5-storey, part 7-storey office building. So this has been amended from the original scheme, which was going to be up to 8-storey. May I continue, Chair? May I continue? Or should I pause?
Problem is, he won't hear you online. I think we should just
I'll
pause
pause.
for a second. Sorry, everyone. Is that it?
Thank you, Chair.
We'll try, if you try and carry on, we'll see what happens next. It's a surprise.
Okay, just the office building will measure 29 metres high to the top of the planetarium and 26 metres to the top of the 7th floor itself. And we're going to share with you later visuals of the appearance of that building and the height of it and how it fits in with the surrounding built environment. Proposal will provide 9,000 square metres of office floor space in the heart of Maidenhead, located north of the High Street and southeast of Providence Place. Proposed office building would incorporate air source heat pumps and solar panels. Proposal includes a green infrastructure network, including public realmworks, tree planting along the realigned St Mary's Walk, and the green roofs on the 5th and 7th floors of the office building. This is a car-free scheme with no parking provision for future users of the offices. Proposed scheme includes 84 cycle spaces. The view here is it's a sustainable location close to the Elizabeth line with access to London and also proximity to bus stops too and buses too. Next slide too, please, James. This is basically the red line plan of the site, and it shows you where the site is. But the next slide, please, is more detail. It shows you both the site in orange and then the faded out St Mary's Walk apartments. Now, those two orange blocks are within the site allocation in the Naples plan, but the apartments are outside. They are not part of this application, are outside. But there you see, basically, you've got Sainsbury's to the top of there. You've got Providence House as well, and you've also got the High Street, which we'll all see the 3D visuals later. So that gives you a context of what it is and where it is of St Mary's Walk. Next slide, please. Yes. That's
Councillor Waters, can we come back to this when we
the
get to the
application side,
questions
sir.
section?
That's the application side.
So you can make a note of it, and then we can come back to it when we've got the
Application
questions.
side.
Thank you.
Next one. Now, the next one is basically a ground floor plan, block plan, but that helps because that shows you also not only the footprint of the building at ground floor, but it also shows you the proposal to have a public walkway between Providence Place and St Mary's Walk. And this scheme also includes environmental enhancements along St Mary's Walk itself. Next slide, please. So basically the benefits. We're looking at the quantifiable economic impact of this development during its construction phase include the following. Generating an average of 280 direct full-time jobs in construction during the construction phase. supporting a further 340 full-time jobs in the range of sectors through indirect supply chain construction activity and wider induced benefits. It will create up to £27.6 million in direct gross value added and further 3.33 million, in indirect and induced gross value added per annum during the construction phase of the development. Next slide, please. So the benefits during the operational phase, when it's a 7-storey office building occupied, providing the space for 504 permanent net additional full-time jobs in the town centre. In addition to supporting a further 222 full-time jobs in the wider regional economy through indirect effects. And they're delivering £88.7 million per annum in direct GVA once the office space is completed and is fully operational, generating the region of £840,000 additional business rates revenue to the borough each year for the lifetime of the development. The benefits of the proposed office development are considered to be significant. Proposed provision of offices located with a sustainable location, this is the provision of offices in a sustainable location within the town centre are considered to be accepted in principle. But now we go into the material considerations beyond the principle. Thanks, James. The development, in summary, 4 points. The development provides 9,000 square metres of new office space, a sustainable location in the heart of Maidenhead town centre. The building will be between 5 and 7 stories high. The height, layout and appearance has been driven through feedback provided by officers following amendments to the initial scheme, which was submitted in 2024. Starting point as a principle of office-led development is considered to be acceptable with the development plan policies. So principle of development is acceptable. So that's a summary of the headlines. Next slide. Specific matters now, the detail. The next are 13 criteria that are set out in the policy HO1 of the neighbourhood local plan for this site. The first is to facilitate comprehensive redevelopment and effective placemaking in the town centre, which you'll see from later in the plans, this scheme does in terms of bold contemporary design, actually enhancing this part of the town centre. The next is mainly about the high street element, which is not part of this application, as the focus on retail provision at ground floor fronting high street, preferably with residential above. Now that scheme is not within the red line of this plan, but it's a policy requirement of the whole in terms of when that site comes forward. That site has not come forward at the moment. Third is to provide a high quality, attractive, safe pedestrian and cycle connections. And you're going to see that later with the plans for St. Mary's Walk. Number 4 is to ensure development is well serviced by public bus routes and demand responsive transport. You see that also in terms of the heads of terms for the 106 includes real-time information at the bus stops. We've also got creating a high quality green infrastructure network on the site, like green roofs and green space, retaining and protecting the existing trees on the site, which it does. So it's to improve design quality, safety, green infrastructure, and vitality of St. Mary's Walk, which it does. Number 9 is provide appropriate mitigation measures to address impacts of noise impacts and air quality. Again, we have no objection from environmental protection on this in terms of amenities. The next is to provide, if applicable, 30% affordable, but that scheme is not part of the current application. It says to conserve and seek to enhance the significance of the heritage assets within the area, in particular the conservation area. And our colleagues, the conservation officer, has said that this scheme would have less than substantial harm and low in terms of the impact on the conservation area. And then we're duty bound to balance it against the benefits, which the exercise we've done as well. And then the next is to address potential risk to groundwater. And next is about sustainable drainage. There's a whole slide on drainage later, see how this site actually is accepted in terms of flood mitigation and drainage. So those are the criteria set out by planning policy in the local plan. Thank you, James. So the proposed amendment would be a contemporary addition to Maidenhead Town Centre. In the absence of prevailing character, Because at the moment, looking at where the site is, it's an empty building. It's been empty about 16 years. This would add positively to the town centre. The external design proposed would integrate successfully with the surroundings. The elevations have adopted a number of design features and characteristics to break up the overall building would appear a positive precedent for future development in the area. The materials proposed for the upper levels of the south elevation are light metallic bronze panels with a glass outer finish. The main wall panels are opaque to ensure residential courtyard privacy remains. The materials are reflective and the aim is to direct southern soft light down into the terrace courtyard. And the terrace level, the wall will be comprised solid light brickwork and additional metal planters are proposed here with mature shrubs aligned against the wall to create an attractive natural appearance. The pattern materials proposed for the brick realm include brick sets, stone paving and soft landscaping, which appear to be robust and appropriate in this setting. So next we actually see some slides soon. Right, this is basically in terms of the scale, height and massing. I said it's been reduced from 8-story down to 7. It's a positive precedent, enhanced character of the area. Policy QB3A supports an increase up to 2 stories above surrounding buildings for sustainable development purposes, which actually contradicts the SPD's stricter 6-story limit. The stepped and setback of the upper floors are appropriate, given the surrounding tall buildings, including Sainsbury's, and align with the guidance in the borough's building height and tall buildings SPD. The proposed office building will not dwarf the commercial and retail buildings in the immediate vicinity of the site, and the proposed office building would not give rise to unacceptable harm to surrounding neighbouring properties with respect to loss of light, overlooking, loss of privacy, overbearingness, noise, and would not undermine the quality of life of the community cohesion and resilience. Next slide, please. This is a CGI of the building itself, 7 stories high, with the amount of glazing in there. You see the bronze panels, you see the flat roof, you see how it sits next to the adjacent building. And actually, with the light and illumination, actually enhances the street scene in this area. Next slide, please. This is basically the foyer, the atrium, a view of the atrium and the link through to St. Mary's Walk. You see light, you see animation, and you see not just a foyer, but on the right you see there's a cycling element, a hub element to it too, which we're looking at working with the applicant's team and our lawyers about how we can actually provide that as well in terms of cycle parking. So it's bold, it's contemporary, it actually lifts the quality of the built environment in that part of the town centre. Next slide, please. This is one aerial view from Market Street, looking down. So you're looking down from almost like above the Levantine restaurant, looking down over it, and you can see immediately how it matches in with the height of the Sainsbury's building to the left and other buildings beyond. And with the amendments made over the last sort of 12, 18 months, it sits comfortably within the urban matrix. Next slide, please. These are a number of views that show how the scheme's improved. The left is a 2023, so that's when the plans were being drawn up initially, and on the right are the improvements made. Some are very minor. I mean, here I think there's the fascia treatments, but you're looking at basically a positive, basic active frontage at ground floor. Next slide, please. This is a view from St. Mary's Close, and you can see immediately the reduction in the height of the building and the removal of a story, and it's screened and it's set back in the landscape. The next slide, please. These again show, this is the improvements proposed along St. Mary's Walk with the public realm works and the built environment and the soft landscaping, which would enhance it. Next slide, please. This again shows you the reduction in the height when set back, looking from almost like the road from towards Sainsbury's. Again, it's set back, it's bold, illuminated, public realm works. So those are but 3 architect CGIs of how the scheme will fit in. Next slide, please. And yeah, this again shows you the scheme from the viewpoints of how it's sort of set back and it's been amended and how it works. Next slide, please. This is a considerable difference. When looking down this road here, you can see the difference between the earlier scheme on the left and the old scheme, new scheme on the right. This isn't a previous refuse scheme. This is one that's been developed over time, working with the applicants and the developers to actually enhance and improve the quality of the proposal to such a scheme that it complies with policy and recommending approval. Next slide, please. So in terms of the transport and highway improvements, we're looking at a Section 106 agreement should include the following highway works: a contribution towards the widening of the footways on High Street between St Ives Road and Queen Street, which is adjacent to this development as part of the borough's town centre streets programme. The footways are currently exceptionally narrow on the High Street between St Ives Road and Queen Street. The contribution is to be agreed between the applicant and our own highways team. So that's a heads of terms in the 106. The next is the bus stop at Sainsbury's would benefit from real-time passenger information screens. And the benchmark cost of this is approximately £6,000. So our colleagues in highways are negotiating that with the developers over the provision of the RTPI information on the bus stop outside Sainsbury's. Next is highway improvements work surrounding the site, including but not limited to all the necessary infrastructure associated works such as footways, curbs, drainage, new or amended lighting schemes to full street lighting assessments, landscaping, resurfacing, road studs, street lighting and loading bay works, subject to a successful traffic regulation order. And finally is the provision of a cycle hub at the ground floor. Thanks, next slide, and a robust travel plan. So proposed pedestrian improvements, looking at the proposal, would retain the existing north-south pedestrian route of St Mary's Walk, with improvements to hard and soft landscaping, will bring active frontages and vibrancy to the area. It's also proposed to create a new pedestrian route, as we referred to before, through from St Mary's Walk to Providence Place to improve connectivity, vibrancy and safety of the area. And this route will be accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which provides opportunities to include public art within the spaces, which is another policy requirement of the borough local plan. Next slide, please, James. So in terms of flood risk, this was another criteria, if you recall, from the policy in the local plan. And that is the majority of the site is located within flood zone 1, with the small segments in the east and the south within flood zone 2, considered to be at low risk of fluvial flooding. The application has been accompanied by a comprehensive surface drainage report and a flood risk assessment, comprising discharge into the sewer network. Due to the lack of open space around the site, attenuation basins and infiltration cannot be implemented here. So the surface water network would utilise green and blue roofs to attenuate peak flows and provide water quality and treatment. The flood risk assessment has been appraised by the lead local flood authority, being found to be acceptable in ensuring the proposed development would not result in increased flood risk in other areas and would adopt the appropriate mitigation measures on site to ensure the development would be adequately protected throughout its lifetime. Next slide, please. Infrastructure delivery. This is basically to ensure that when we're negotiating with the applicant, what we're asking for in terms of any highway improvements or anything, meet the following tests. Regulation 122 of the Community Infrastructure Levy regulations, and they are to be necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms, directly related to the development, and fairly and reasonably relate in scale and kind to the development itself. So we're looking at provision of 35.7%, net gain, so huge net gain in the site. At the moment, there's nothing there at all. Contributions to highway improvements via the infrastructure contribution and creation of a cycle hub. Thank you, James. This is just images of what a cycle hub could look like, but we're working with the lawyers from both teams on this, how we can actually achieve that. Next slide, please. And finally, it's the table, next slide, is basically the benefits. So on the left, you have all the benefits referred to before about the employment, the amount of money coming into the town, all those are on the left. And on the right, you've got the harms. And that is less than substantial harm, low, the heritage assets, and a removal of 2 blue badge parking spaces on what was and to actually reinstate what was the loading bay for the servicing of the service vehicles on Providence Place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Before I open this up to the floor, we've got two speakers on this application. So firstly, could I call up Nigel Taylor, please?
Chair, just to inform the first registered speaker is notified just before the meeting that they are unable to attend.
Okay.
They've given their speech to me, so I'll read it on their behalf.
Okay, no problem.
If you want to, do you want to tell me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we go. So Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm speaking on behalf of the residents and owners of St Mary's Walk, which directly adjoins the proposed redevelopment of Sierra House. We're not opposed to regeneration. In fact, many of us believe this site has real potential. But as the plans stand, but as the plans stand, they pose serious risks to the safety, amenity, and well-being of the residents who live immediately next door. First, safety and fire escape. The proposals remove the only fire escape serving our residential block. This is not a minor detail. It is literally a matter of life and death. Grenfell showed us that devastating consequences of ignoring safe means of escape. To approve a scheme that knowingly removes the only escape route for 11 flats would be reckless and negligent. This issue alone should not be grounds for refusal. Should be grounds for refusal. Second, privacy, light, and overbearing impact. Developers failed to assess the direct impact on our homes. Despite repeated requests, no proper privacy or overlooking study has been produced. The building is less than 7 meters from our windows. Habitable rooms and private balconies will be directly overlooked. In terms of daylight and sunlight, we have seen how the High Court recently upheld residents' right to light in a case where buildings were 105 meters apart. Here we are talking about just 7 meters. The impact on light and outlook for our homes is obvious and unacceptable. Third, amenity and services. For nearly 50 years, residents have had legal rights of way, bin storage areas, and disabled access. These proposals either remove or severely reduce these facilities without any agreement or consultation. The refuse area provided is half the size of what exists today. Disabled parking used regularly by residents for hospital visits is to be taken away. Deliveries to our flats will become almost impossible. These changes will make day-to-day living in our homes much harder. Fourth, conservation and overdevelopment. The scheme remains too tall, too bulky, and too dominating for its location in the town centre conservation area. The removal of stepped features makes the roof line even more overbearing. It is contrary to the borough's own local plan and tall buildings SPD. It risks harming not only our homes, but Maidenhead's townscape and heritage setting. Finally, consultation process. Despite being their own leaseholders, residents of St Mary's Walk have been excluded from meaningful consultation. We're treated as though we don't exist, yet we are the ones who share the walls, the services, and the risks of the scheme. The council should not allow redevelopment to proceed without full and frank engagement from those directly affected. In conclusion, this is not a balanced scheme. It places residents at unacceptable risk, strips us of basic rights, and damages the character of the town. We urge you to refuse this application and instead require the applicant to come back with a scheme that respects safety, daylight, heritage, and above all, the people who already call St Mary's Walk their home. Thank you.
Thank you, that was time. Thank you, Lawrence, for reading that on behalf of Nigel Taylor. Can I call up the next speaker, please? That's Pippa Nisbet. When you're ready, press the right button and then you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
So press the other button on the left one.
Is it left one this time?
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's all right. No worries. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of the applicant. As you're aware, the application site has been vacant for over 16 years and it currently provides a negative impact on its surroundings and the conservation area. We've explored a number of options over the years and had continuous engagement with your officers to arrive at a design which has also been independently reviewed and supported by the design review panel. Being a brownfield town centre site offers a significant opportunity for regeneration, removing a poor quality vacant building and replacing it with a building of high quality design with substantial improvements to the public realm. This will create an environment which people enjoy walking through where they feel safe. The proposed walkway from St Mary's Walk through to Providence Place will improve legibility, also helping to open up this part of the town centre. The opportunity to reuse the existing building was carefully considered, but it was not possible due to existing inefficiencies and current fire regulation constraints. In considering redevelopment of the site, the potential to add residential use was also explored, but proved unviable. This case was accepted at the local plan examination, where the inspector concluded that a housing element should not be required. With regard to recent comments raised by residents within the flats at St Mary's Walk, regarding the bin store and the western fire escape, we can confirm that there has been a comprehensive review of fire escape arrangements as part of the planning application. If the development proceeds, whilst the western egress will be removed, adequate fire escapes in compliance with all relevant regulations will be provided alongside a new bin store. Throughout construction, access to the flats and access up and around St Mary's Walk will also be maintained. As set out within the officer's report, we have recently made some amendments to address officers' concerns. The building has been reduced in height by 1 storey and a lighter weight approach has also been introduced at top floor with further setback of the plant area from the building edge. At present, the current building provides an uncomfortable transition from the Sainsbury's building to the High Street.
1 minute remaining.
The proposed design provides a stepping down from the north to the south, achieving a much more sensitive transition. A local plan policy supports an increase of up to 2 storeys above surrounding buildings. The proposals comply with this, and our heritage statement confirms the Maidenhead conservation area will experience a low level of less than substantial harm. The views comparison documents submitted and the images you've seen tonight show that the proposals will provide a high quality design which will successfully integrate with its surroundings. In weighing up the planning balance, it's necessary to consider the considerable public benefits. These can be summarised as regeneration and bringing a vacant site back into use, achieving BREEAM Excellent as a minimum targeting outstanding, a biodiversity net gain of 357%, new jobs and economic benefits, improved public realm and connectivity, enhancements to the conservation area at this location. We therefore hope that you're able to support these proposals, which will deliver significant regeneration. Thank you.
Thank you. On time as well. Perfect. Thank you. So I'm ready to open this up to the floor. So firstly, if anybody got any questions, I know you did, Councillor Walters. Did you want to, in the meeting you were asking about conservation area, did you want clarification on that still?
Just to say, Madam Chairman, that it is right in the middle of the conservation area, isn't it, near the church? And there's not a lot spoken about the church. I'll leave it to the rest of the panel, but one's just a bit wary that, you know, money counts and the conservation area doesn't. And I'd like, is the conservation officer here?
Conservation officer.
Wouldn't be a bad idea they came, would it, on a thing like this? All right, John, I'll leave it to the panel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask a question for the officers about the SPD, the tall buildings SPD? In other sort of planning meetings, we've been told where there's a housing element, it's got negligible weight because the tilted balance, obviously that's not consideration here, but in this case, you're saying it's in contradiction with the BLP? I mean, are we basically saying it's just useless, it's no good for anything, or is it just something in particular about this site that means it's not applicable?
We're just basically we're balancing it. We're balancing what's actually said in the SPD against the policy requirement in the local plan. I think it's QP3A we refer to, and so we actually clarify in the committee report exactly where we're in terms of the heights of the buildings and how this is achievable. Because as it's 2 stories within, so it is permissible. It is permissible development.
BLP,
It's
local
acceptable.
plan trumps the SPD. The SPD can't sort of contradict the local plan, obviously. I'm just wondering if the SPD is actually worth anything, if it's on a negligible weight whenever there's housing, or if it's, I mean, why did we write an SPD that conflicts with the local plan?
Do you want to come in on that one? James is coming in on that.
So just to confirm, basically, the legal status of an SPD, obviously your starting point for decision taking in planning decisions is the development plan that's set out in section 38(6) of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act. And your SPDs really are there used as a tool to really kind of verify, calibrate what's been proposed, but it can never overrule basically a policy that's adopted. So we'll always leave with the policy, and it meets with the policy criteria, and it's broadly in line with what the SPD requires, then you would call that consistent. What you can't do with an SPD is basically rewrite policy or revoke policy. It's there to help you interpret the policy, if that makes sense. And obviously that's a matter for the decision taker to interpret that in whatever way they wish to. But obviously the officers have set out their interpretation of that, but hopefully that kind of provides the clarity over where an SPD sits in the context of local plan policy.
So in this particular determination, it's not in the harms column, it's got 0 weight because it conflicts with the local plan. Is that correct?
Yeah, the officer's recommendation sets out that it accords with the local plan policy. Greater weight is given to that than the SPD in this case.
Okay, thank you, James, that's clear.
Councillor Bond, please.
Thank you. Just a couple of things I wanted clarification on. One is on one of your CGIs, I couldn't see the gap between the two buildings that's going to form the new walkway to the Sainsbury's Plaza. Is that walkway just at ground floor level, or is there a gap all the way, literally gap between?
That's at ground floor level. That's basically a walkway that's open 24/7 between St Mary's Walk and Providence Place.
Right, but above that, the two buildings join.
Yeah, you'll see from the plans, you'll see the building, yeah.
And
Sorry, is that?
Councillor Bond, I'll get the slide up on screen. So
It's this one, councillor. This one.
oh, right,
This one
yes.
here, you see the ground floor, you
Yes,
see
sir,
the issue,
okay.
you see the pedestrians within that walkway going between Providence Place towards St Mary's Walk.
Right. And the other thing is, I didn't get an email about these additional documents for tonight, but I did come across them today, so I did look at them. I'm not a lawyer, so I wasn't sure I was clear on them, but at the moment, from Sainsbury's, between the pub and the Sierra House, we've got a sort of narrow walkway which goes down to give access to the bin stores. So I gather that's at the moment where the bin stores are taken away from. And you've got a staircase that you can just see in there that is obviously this western staircase that they're talking about. So I take it the bin store is more or less remaining, but it will be accessed by the bin men from the high street. But as part of the building, the staircase is disappearing. So is the new building closer to the St Mary's Walk flats, or is there going to be a gap between the two? And I take it this means that to get rid of their rubbish, residents will have to come down the ordinary staircase, which has a door onto St Mary's Walk, cross that, and then go into another door to access the bins. So it isn't perhaps something you'd want to do in your night attire, but at the moment you could because it's a private second staircase. So I think I'm right on that. And the other point is, there was mentioned of disabled access. Now, unless there's a lift somewhere tucked away in the building, I couldn't see why anybody would think there was disabled access at the moment, because you go in the main front door off St Mary's Walk, and you've got to go up a staircase. I did go into the building to visit someone but not since the 1980s, so I can't really picture the inside after all this time. So yeah,
Totally confused me.
confirmation of the bin, how close the buildings
You're talking about Sierra House, this new 7-storey office building, Are you talking about that and disabled access to that?
No, St Mary's Walk. Is there any disabled access to the St Mary's Walk flats? Because I thought I heard it mentioned, so. And I'm just puzzled.
That's not part of the current application, and that's not subject to this current application either. That's not on the table today. That's not for the committee to discuss whether that St Mary's apartments are not in this development.
No, I just thought, maybe I got it wrong. I thought the residents were saying that with the development, some disabled access would be affected, or unless they were thinking of the car parking, of course. But yes, is the new building going to be closer to the flats, or is it just the fact that it's higher?
The CGI on the screen now is, but the architect generated this. And you'll see basically the relationship between the 7-storey apartment building and St Mary's Walk. And you'll see the only windows, there are 3 windows on that elevation, and they're all obscure glazed. And so there are standoff distances too between the apartment building and the office block and the apartments.
Yeah,
and in terms of the residents and the bins and the fire escape, they're all covered in full in the update sheet. In terms of standoff, this has all been through design review, this has been through colleagues with the fire authority, this has been through district highways, and it meets all the policy requirements, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to picture what the residents. So I can see actually it's not right up to the flats, and that side's going to be glazed like the other side. So, okay, thanks. That gives a better impression. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor Bond. While we've got the slides up, I know councillor Waters was referencing the conservation area, so we may as well look at that while we've got the slideshow up.
Sorry, the red line around the dotted red line is the allocation in the policy HO1 of the allocation AL3 in the neighbourhood local plan. That's what that is. But the site is within the Hayden Conservation Area. So as you've heard, we've been through to our conservation officer and she's assessed it. And she looked at the initial scheme and she's looked at the improvements made to it. And her comments are, there's less than substantial harm, low. And then we're duty bound as planning officers to look at the balance. And in terms of the balance, there are substantial benefits to the scheme that outweigh that less than substantial harm low. There's been case law on this in the High Court as well. So what we're doing, we have to do this, go to this process. We've gone through this exercise. It's less substantial harm low, and the benefits outweigh those low harms. Therefore, we're recommending to the members that it's acceptable.
Balance, it really is. Most people don't understand that. I mean, but the word transition is used as well. I mean, they're not necessarily going to transit traditionally, so they're going to be permanent, isn't it? So there is harm to the conservation area, isn't there?
I'm not denying that, yes, sir. It's less than substantial. There is harm.
Yeah.
There is less than substantial harm low. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Waters. Got no more names on my screen for questions. Are we ready to open this up to debate in that case now? If anyone wants to say anything? Councillor Douglas, thank you.
Sorry. Just turn that off. Thank you, Chair. I want to start off by saying I'm really pleased to see the update as with the applicant confirming, accepting the new condition to keep St Mary's Walk open the whole time through the demolition, through the construction, which is one of the objectives raised as a concern. I'm really pleased to see that in there. Can I ask a quick question about this public art? So is it sort of explicit where it's going to be, what it's going to be? So this should have come in the previous section, really. How it's going to be? Has the applicant made any sort of comment about how they're going to, who they're going to ask to do that? What sort of art it will be? How much space it will be? Where exactly it'll be located?
Yes, the public art requirement is set out as a requirement of the local plan policy, but we would assess that as part of a discharge of condition application. We wouldn't want to obviously see something, dare I say, minuscule to tick the box, but it's proportionate with where it can go within the site. So we use a proportionate approach as officers at a discharge of condition stage to secure appropriate measures. I'd like to think that if you walk through the site, you'd be aware of where the public art is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so another quick question, if I can, Chair. The in 10.13, the proposed development of offices with a potential cafe at the ground floor, is the text. This scheme doesn't include a cafe at the ground floor specifically, explicitly, but are we saying that it doesn't preclude it either?
No. Okay. No, apparently.
We're not saying it, so it's not precluded. It could, yeah, okay, that's good. That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Obviously, having read the report, it's clear there are harms and benefits. You've listed them yourselves. The house, the height's come down a bit, which is great. It's still above the SPD height, but that's fine because it's not conflicting with the BLP. But at the end of the day, it's still high, and it does affect the surrounding residents and the church negatively. But the church haven't raised any objections to that, so I think that's acceptable, if unfortunate. I'm more concerned about the loss of the blue badge parking and the steep ramp from the west to the east, getting into the new access, the new way through. That neither of those things are ideal, but there's benefits too. I mean, it's development, isn't it? And I mean, it's worth sort of pointing out that development is a benefit in its own right. You know, that's what the presumption for development is all about. More importantly, I mean, speaking as someone who's walked past that building hundreds of times in the last couple of years, because I live in the town centre, I represent the ward, it's a massive eyesore where it is now. I mean, I thought it was for decades, but they say 16 years, it's felt like forever. And to my mind, the new building, the proposed building, is not, I wouldn't call it beautiful, but I don't think it doesn't seem to look terrible either if the CGIs are a good guide. I know they sometimes aren't, but you know, from the information we've got, it looks okay. The report says the elevations have adopted a number of defined design features to break up the overall building, would appear a positive precedent. I think I agree with that by and large. It's got some variation in sort of the layering, which fits in with the area. It's got some variation in the vertical up and down. It's decent, it's all right. 500 new jobs maybe, office workers, if they fill it, hopefully they will. But the biggest thing for me, apart from the development, is that, you know, the fact of something happening there at all is that St Mary's Walk gets opened up and that new route in through the building, under the building from Providence Place. The walkway that exists there from the high street is really dingy, and this new walkway won't be, hopefully, and they're going to improve the existing as well. So yeah, I mean, subject to listening to what other councillors have got to say, I'm broadly in favour of the development as it stands, with a few kind of niggly questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Councillor Singh, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm a ward councillor in St Mary's. I know the building very well. I agree with my colleague, Councillor Douglas. It's been an eyesore for a number of years, 16 years. We've lost a lot of money on this, and it's been a bit of a blight in the area. There are issues around the area of antisocial behaviour. So hopefully, you know, this new scheme we'll clean that up. I like the investment. There's a huge amount of investment. I mean, when you add it all up, it's, you know, near on £90 million. Huge number of jobs, 500 jobs. And, you know, they're significant benefits. Not only that, they'll also bring benefits to the borough of near on £900,000 a year in business rates. And also crucially, it will help us out in financial terms that car park Hines Meadows has been sitting half empty. It's about 35–40%. I'm not sure my colleague, Councillor Hill, will probably correct me, give me the exact figure, but it's about 35% capacity at the moment. Should these office workers return, that will fill the car park up and make that area a lot more vibrant. So broadly, I'm in favour of this. One of the things what I would like to suggest is, I'm just looking at the conditions, and I just wanted to check that there is a condition for improvements to the entrance and management of the area. I think that's condition 16. Now, what I do want to make sure this area is going to be open. It says 24/7, where the new walkway is going to be created. There is potential in that area for ASB. And it's not good practice to have these sort of covered open areas. Now, the only mitigation that I can see there is that in that condition we add maybe a line in there. I'm sure officers would look at it, but anyway, but I just want it to be a little bit explicit, to say something along the lines of measures to ensure the safety, accessibility and cleanness of that route on a 24-hour basis. So that will be throughout the day and night, just to make sure people are protected as they're walking through that area. Other than that, I just wanted some reassurance in terms of the blue badge holders provision that's going to be repurposed. I understand it's going to be in the car park. I just wanted to ask officers, what is the state of play in regards to the blue badge holders? Do they have access to the car park? Can they use any space? How does it work? And will that be in perpetuity as well as part of this?
To clarify, you had to say that was a loading bay previously, and it's reverting back to a loading bay, those two spaces that were there.
Okay.
As far as your other question, I'm not in a position to answer that one.
Oh, right. Okay. But is it not a disabled bay is it not disabled parking at the moment? Is it a loading bay, but then at the moment, or?
I think currently it is badge parking.
Okay, so it's changed.
But previously, when it was in use, this is how I'm understanding it, the building was actually a loading bay previously when it was in use.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fair enough. I just want to make sure as people have got somewhere to park, the disabled. If you can just answer that question there, Michael or James.
Councillor Singh, is that the one on how disabled
parking spaces? How would they be going to be covered?
Basically, this was a loading bay for years, and basically this was commandeered as a two blue badge parking spaces. What they're proposing is basically to turn that back into what its rightful use was, which is a loading bay for deliveries and loading and servicing of the site. I think in terms of parking and disabled parking, there's a bigger debate ongoing within the council about blue badge parking spaces within the town centre. But this isn't part of this discussion. The discussion today is those two, that layout, loading bay is going to revert into a loading bay to service this office development.
Okay, so those disabled bays, they're not required there. Is that what you're saying? There's no need, demand?
No, this is a car-free scheme. This is a car-free development in the town centre.
No, I appreciate that, but just talking about the loss of the blue badges. Obviously, it's having an impact on that the roadway. Is there a need for those spaces? And are you saying that there's no need?
I don't know if there's a need or not. We're looking at basically, I think, as I said before, this council is looking at mobility spaces across the town centre, and we're looking at all we're doing now is propose that this is reverted to its rightful use as a loading bay. If you have issues about disabled spaces within by all means, contact the Director of Public Services here. But this application is to revert it to its rightful use as a loading bay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Director of Public Services, was it?
whatever the director's name at RBWM is, I suggest you talk to them. Because
Okay.
the application in front of us is to revert it to a loading bay.
Right,
Thank you,
okay.
Chair.
Okay, thank you. I just want to see if there's anything else. Okay. Yeah, that was it at the moment. Thank you. That was all the points I want to raise.
Thank you, councillor Singh. Can I just bring in councillor James Cross, sorry, on the point about your conditions that you mentioned?
If you don't mind just going over it once more, just so we've got the accurate wording from what you do require. There's one point I just need to pick up before I get that from you, which is, can we just confirm we're talking about draft condition 16 here on the report?
Yes. Yes, I think that's the only condition there I was talking about. The public realm management plan. So it says prior to commencement, obviously, you've read it anyway. Details of hard and soft landscaping, covers St Mary's Walk, the entrance passageway, submitted and approved in writing, and it shall include the fascia immediately above the entrance walkway, which currently includes a sign. So that's the walkway that's currently there at the moment, and more prominent approach along the high street. The development shall be carried out and maintained in accordance with the approved plans for lifetime development. Now, that's the only management that we're talking about at the moment. But what I'm talking about is the new fresh walkway that's going to be created under the building. So normally in building design, it's not good practice to have these covered walkways because it encourages antisocial behaviour and we've had issues, objections from the police and so on and so forth. So my thought was just to slip in a line in there and to put something along the lines of measures to ensure the safety, accessibility and cleanness of the route on a 24-hour basis. Now that condition can be managed and maintained over time in perpetuity, but what we need to ensure is that is a safe, accessible route, and because it's private property, there's not going to be an issue with antisocial behaviour, criminal activity, and so on and so forth. Because nobody wants that. We don't want to create a problem further along the line. We want it this night. Yeah, and I've seen some of these big office developments. You see, there's a big one over at Paddington at the moment, and they're employing like 12 security guards every night. You know, they've got 2 elevators going up to the sky, and it's the only way they can control the ASB at night.
Thank you, councillor Singh.
Thank you.
I'll bring in James again.
Yeah, if it's okay, councillor Singh, if we could take that away post-meeting just to refine the wording. We've obviously got the recordings and the notes, so I just don't want to draft something in haste tonight and not get it accurate and reflective and not meeting the test. Just the other point I just need to make clear on that one as well is that condition 16 is a prior to commencement of development condition, which under separate legislation requires us to get agreement from the applicants on that as well. I'm not in the business of getting nods from the applicants in the audience. So we'll tweak that to a prior to occupation of development, which will cover that point off as well. Just want to make sure you've got your agreement on that.
Thank you, councillor Singh. Just to be clear, if you're, going through the detail of conditions, are you actually making this a proposal? Or have you not at that stage yet?
Nothing that changes your mind, because on the face of it, I can't see anything wrong with this application. The height's been reduced on it. It's a good, sensible scheme. The carbon neutral. There's huge benefits. What this is going to do is going to unlock the regeneration in this key part of the town centre. So it's a win-win situation. The fire, I did have concern about the fire escape. That's been covered. The windows facing the residential apartments, all that glazing is going to be obscure glazing. So yeah, I'm quite comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Singh. We haven't got a seconder yet, but we can run through the conditions once that happens. If I could move on to councillor Hill, please.
Yeah, I know this area extremely well, and to be quite blunt, the current building there's a mess, isn't it? It actually degrades the town, and it degrades the environment. So I won't go on for too long, but I actually think this design is very, very good, and I'm grateful for the reduction in height, reduction in dominance of the scheme, which I think is in keeping with the town. It would regenerate the town in that area, and it would provide a lot of accommodation and employment for people. Councillor seems quite right. A bit more parking in Hines Meadow won't go amiss. I think we're about 50% full. There's about 600 spaces available, which is a good thing. And I'm looking at all these conditions that are being, I suppose, imposed or negotiated. And we could certainly do with some footways widening, as it might want, with the highways brief and bus stops with real-time information. So there's a lot of other things there as well, the footways and the curves, the alignments of the drainage. That's all good news. So Councillor Singh's beaten me to it. I would have moved officer recommendation, but he got there first. So I'm really pleased to second Councillor Singh's motion and recommend this scheme. I think it's very good. And overdue, I might say, Chairman, well overdue. I don't mean that disrespectfully to the people who've made the planning application, but that part of Maidenhead has been substandard for a long time.
Thank you, councillor Hill. Before we go ahead with the vote, I've got actually councillor Bond. I think you wanted to say something.
Yes. Unlike the younger colleagues beside me, I can remember when St Mary's Walk was a vibrant place with a successful restaurant. And as everybody said, it is sad to see it now. It just somehow went out of fashion as a place to go to. So yes, this is a positive step overall. Just a quick comment on disabled parking. Those two spaces are often occupied. I think it's probably people who are going to Sainsbury's because that's a logical destination for parking there. There is public car parking above Sainsbury's. There are 2 floors directly above Sainsbury's, floors 3 and 4, and each of those has a dozen disabled parking bays. And certainly up on the top floor, the 4th floor, you generally have 1 or 2 of those dozen spaces used. So there is adequate disabled parking for Sainsbury's because you can easily come out of that car parking area, go down in the lift to the ground floor, and you're virtually straight into Sainsbury's. I wonder if some of these people who like to park in Providence Place and the disabled spots are actually a bit uncertain about navigating a multi-storey car park. I did speak to a friend about parking in Maidenhead, and I asked her if she'd ever parked in Hines Meadow. She said, oh no, I tried it once. I went the wrong way round the ramp. But, you know, there is adequate parking for disabled people. They've obviously provided at least one of the 2 lifts is working. Lifts always, or virtually always, come in pairs, and I think that's good. Because it means if one breaks down, one is working. And I think for the last couple of days, there's only been 1 lift working. That's Sainsbury's responsibility, but I think they should make a good effort to make sure that as often as possible, both lifts are working. They've been there for years, so they're getting a bit old. So they've got a little bit of a problem there. They've done a lot of work in the last year or so on the travelator, but I wouldn't like to take somebody in a wheelchair down the travelator, because you loosen your grip and it's ended up at the bottom in unfortunate circumstances. So yes, overall I think it's a positive scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Bond. Councillor Douglas.
Thanks, Chair. Is there anything we can do to sort of alleviate any concerns about construction noise and the timing of the building? I mean, I know this isn't directly a planning concern, but I mean, for the sake of the neighbours' amenity, and we've got the church next door as well. I mean, normally construction won't be happening on a Sunday anyway. Can we add a condition to mandate that there won't be any building construction on Sunday?
So there's varying schools of thoughts on construction management plans. And to give you the options, because obviously you are the decision taker, I can give you the advice. There's the one school of thought, which is it's covered under separate legislation. And therefore, as a best practice, you don't try and repeat what's already covered under separate legislation, as you all well know. Then there's the other school of thought, which is, well, what's the harm in putting something on that repeats legislation anyway? So we have got model construction management plan conditions if you would want to go down that route. But whether it's necessary in terms of fulfilling the test set out in section 57 of the framework would be a matter for you as decision maker to determine. Our advice is it's not necessary. That's how we set out the officer's report, but there is the option to put it on there if you do think it's fundamental and necessary.
Thank you, James. I mean, I'll leave that up to my colleagues who proposed and seconded the motion. I'd like to see, I mean, it's a very busy church next door. I'd like to see us chuck in the belt and braces and have the model construction management plan, which specifies at least, at the very least, no noise on the Sundays. Yeah, I mean, we'll see if Councillor Singh and Councillor Hill are willing to throw that in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Before I go to you, Councillor Singh, we've got Adrian online who wants to say something. Also, Councillor Kashmir Singh has joined about 20 minutes ago online. Yeah, so if I could bring Adrian in now, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to put in, I suppose, my views, and I don't know, sorry, I've clicked the wrong button. I did not mean to fill the screen with thumbs up, so apologies. I was trying to turn the hands off down. I just wanted to come in to highlight my school of thought on the construction management noise issues, just so members are aware of it. There is separate legislation that covers working hours on construction sites and nuisance, which is administered by environmental protection. And so if an out of hours noise complaint comes in, then it should go to the environmental protection team, who will do the necessary things to monitor and conserve notices and take action against that in a very quick way. And it's the legislation that's set up to do that, so it's kind of written and fit for purpose to do that. We're not meant to duplicate things in planning, and in honesty, it tends to cause much bigger problems when we try to, because it causes confusion about which council team to contact, who should do what, and our tools aren't set up for it. So in terms of enforcement options, the options the planning enforcement team have is effectively, after research and things, to serve a breach of condition notice, which simply has a one-off fine in it. The legislation environmental health use is much more fit for purpose, but what often happens if we put a planning condition on is everyone contacts the planning team rather than the environmental health team, and it actually takes us longer to get to the bottom of the issue because things, rightly or wrongly, kind of bounce around council teams incorrectly. So I just wanted to kind of share that's my experience of them over many years in the field, just so members are aware and can take a view on it whichever way.
Thank you, Adrian. Can I go to Councillor Singh, please?
Yeah, I was just looking at the condition. There was something I had my hand raised for. Condition number 3, if it's okay with Councillor Hill, I did want to add that on the glazing condition, I did mention it previously about the obscure glazing on the flats, the windows facing the flats on St Mary's Walk, or is it the High Street? the condition is, it's not explicit about the obscure glazing. I think it does refer to it in the report. So it says prior to fitting of materials, details, colour of product and manufacturer information for all external windows and doors shall be submitted to and proved in writing to the local planning authority. Work shall be carried out in accordance with the approved details to be maintained for the lifetime of development. Can I just have it in there explicit that obscure glazing on the three panels facing the residences, the flats, because it's quite close, and just give some protection to the residents. Is that okay? Jeff, is that Councillor Hill? You're okay with that, aren't you? The obscure glazing. Thank you. And I get Councillor Douglas's point about the Sunday construction, because there is a church next door, and just we just need to be very careful about the how we deal with that. It's obviously a sensitive area, and I hear what Adrian's saying. I mean, there is two schools of thought that I've got. I know with construction is the times are pretty rigid. It's Monday to Friday, sort of 8 to 6 and 8 to 1 on Saturday. But we could put in a condition maybe no construction on a Sunday. Obviously, you've got the duplication issue that Adrian raised, but it would make it legally enforceable. Or what I would suggest is, and I'm sure the contractors will be signed up to it, that we can we add a condition that the contractors are signed up to the considerate contractor scheme at CCS. So it just gives it an extra level of protection there as part of the construction management plan.
There's a couple of points that I'll probably miss one, so do nudge me. Sure. Just on the obscure glazing, that should hopefully be covered under condition 19 in the reports.
Oh, is it 19?
You've got a bespoke condition there, but do have a check that make sure it does reflect what you want, basically, and what your aspirations are for it. I think in terms of, obviously, you know, Adrian's given his advice in terms of the issues with construction management plans, which are probably more of an onerous way of controlling things. If it is just specifically hours of operation that are your concerns, then a simple hours of operation condition for construction times would probably be the best tool for addressing that. And it sounds like, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about not having working hours on a Sunday, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, James. Yeah, I was just I'm just thinking that if we do get them to sign up to the CCS scheme, what it does obliges them to speak to the neighbours as well. So there will be that line of communication there, because what we don't want to do is end up babysitting this project. We want the contractor to be fully engaged with the residents around. So let's go for the CCS scheme if you're happy with that, and rather just drop that Sunday.
So what we can't do in a planning condition is mandate the CCS scheme, because there are basically other ways, I think, of achieving what you're trying to achieve here. And I think from what you're basically saying is you want a scheme of engagement where the developers work with the neighbours, and we can cover that off under a separate condition. Then, for example, if the developers, when they're building it out, go the CCS scheme's the most appropriate way of dealing with it, then fantastic. If there's another way of dealing with it by engaging with neighbours, then again, that's achieved the outcome that it sounds that you want. But there's just, like I say, there's various ways to skin the cat in this regard.
Okay, so let's just have a think. Okay, so do you recommend it's better we just put no construction on a Sunday, and then and you can word a condition, carefully word a condition where we talk about engagement with neighbours. And
before I go back to you, I've got a question exactly on what Councillor Singh just mentioned. On our own website, it actually does restrict building work from 8 to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday and 8 to 1 on Saturdays. So my question is that enough on its own, or do we need some extra, belt and braces?
Just want a little bit more meat on it, because we did have. I remember when the waterside development was being built on the other side, There was a good relationship with the contractors and the developers on the site, and when they did, again, they sometimes had a funeral on, and they would inform they had that direct line of communication, inform the contractors, and they would stop for half an hour, 40 minutes. It just makes it a little bit of a nice environment, because this is a big development. It's going to be going on for, it could be 2 years, could be 2.5, 3 years. We just want to make sure that everybody throughout that time the stress is minimised. We want to protect the residents and even the businesses around the area during the construction phase.
So my suggestion, I think for what you're trying to achieve, is there's no construction works on a Sunday. I think what we should do post any resolution here tonight is to consult with our environmental health officer. And then you've got real duplicity in terms of their function and our function in terms of working hours. And then provided you guys are happy with what the officer recommends in terms of working hours, then you've got consistency there, which kind of addresses the wider points. And I think then you probably want to be looking at another condition which requires basically a scheme of engagement for construction purposes with the immediate neighbours. And then again, whichever form that takes, whether it's CCS or another form, it's about the engagement, isn't it? So we can do that as a separate condition.
That's very important, because we understand we've got residents on the front as well, very close. So we've got to make sure everyone's as comfortable, and we've got to look after people's well-being during the stage. So I think I'll be comfortable. Councillor Douglas, are you comfortable with that? Yeah, we're very comfortable with that. Thank you very much, James. And Councillor Hill, are you comfortable? Thank you. Thank you.
I think in that case, I think we're ready to go to vote. Do we want to run through the conditions? I don't know if that Lawrence or James, which. We're just going to clarify those conditions for you, Councillor Singh and Councillor Hill. Before we go to the vote, can I just bring in Adrian? He's online. He's got his hands up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I've managed not to put my thumbs up accidentally this time, so I'm improving. I just wanted to say, I think James and the officers are doing their best to find a way through this and a solution. I'm just personally very nervous about a condition that completely restricts building works on a Sunday. It's quite significantly different to what the normal restrictions are, which are effectively no noisy works or no works that are audible beyond the boundary. So it would actually quite substantially change the amount of time that's available for construction and things like that, particularly once you get to the stage where, the shell of the building is built and they're doing internal fit out and things like that. So I'm just wary it has the potential to delay the delivery of the development by reducing the amount of days to actually build it, and B, potentially increase build costs while not adding much. So I personally would steer towards just the management condition and not the hours. It's a call for councillors. I just wanted to highlight that potential issue before you make a decision on it, because it's probably a more subtle one, but I think it's important to bear it in mind.
Thank you, Adrian. I'll just bring you back in, Councillor Singh.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, what we don't want to do is we don't want to extend the construction time frame. Can we put? I mean, the noise is the issue. That's the big issue. We can put no noisy works on the Sunday. So that's explicit.
It might be easier just that we run through these conditions. I mean,
I mean that's the only what we're trying to get at is we're trying to make sure that people who are in the church very close are not disturbed on the Sunday. So
our environmental health policy does
Yeah.
cover that really. But,
So if noisy works are excluded, that may be okay.
Yeah, I think where we've got to with a updated recommendation and not preempting where the committee will go to tonight with this, but it would be in consultation with the EHO. So we'd be mirroring. So for example, like Adrian's just explained to you, it might be more appropriate to do internal works to the building. Because I think the concern is about external works, noisy stuff, banging stuff, obviously plastering, painting. No one's going to know the difference, are they? So I think we need to just go back, consult with the environmental health officer, trust them, they are the experts on this. But obviously take into account the points that you've raised and what we're trying to achieve here.
Yeah, thank you. We're comfortable at that. Thank you.
Happy with that, councillor Singh?
Yes.
Okay. Lawrence, have you got the updated conditions that we can run through before going to the vote?
Chair, just confirming them. Okay, so the motion on the table is to grant planning permission on the statutory completion of a section 106 agreement with the updated recommendation to include amendments to condition 16 and hours of operation, hours of operation, no construction on Sunday, working hours defined by EHO, scheme of engagement throughout construction and additional conditions set out in the update reports. So happy with that? All right.
Yes, sorry, where it said no construction, that'd be no, basically no noisy construction on a Sunday. So we'll define that with the EHO. That makes sense.
Okay, so the motion on the table to, as mentioned, grant planning permission is proposed by Councillor Gurch Singh and seconded by Councillor Jeff Hill. I'll move to a name vote. Please note that only those in person in this meeting can vote. So please say once I state your name, please state clearly where you're for, against, or abstain from the motion. So Councillor Bond. For. Thank you. Councillor Douglas. The second condition, the second condition is hours of operation for no construction on Sunday. Is that what you're asking? Engagement, sorry?
Engaging neighbours.
Oh. Engagement through scheme of engagement through construction, additional conditions set out in the updated report. That you mean that part? Yeah.
Madam Chair, do you wish everybody to try and speak up?
Come on, we're moving to the name vote. Right. So I'll start again. So Councillor Bond. For. Thank you. Councillor Douglas. For. Thank you. Councillor Hill. For. Thank you. Councillor Martin.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Singh. For. Thank you. Councillor Waters. Thank you. 2, 3, 6. So that's 6 in favour, unanimously approved, motion passes.
Thank you, Lawrence. Before I move on to the next agenda item, will people benefit from a 5-minute quick break? Yeah. So 5-minute break. Anyone in the public who's not interested in the next agenda item, you are free to leave. So, thank you. You're welcome to stay as well, but obviously. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back. So the next agenda item of tonight's meeting is agenda item number 5, which is application number 25/01409, and that's Maidenhead Office Park, Westacott Way. So can I hand over, please, to Michael for the presentation? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application for the development follows on from a previously refused scheme that was refused by committee, went to appeal, and it was dismissed. And the sole reason it was dismissed was it was development in the Greenbelt. Now, in December 2024, the National Planning Policy Framework was amended in terms of Greenbelt. And the whole concept of grey belt came in, and what the impact on openness and the need to justify very special circumstances. And because that the NPPF was amended in December, this application has come in, because the only sole reason for it to be refused and that the inspector refused it on was Greenbelt, nothing else. Not highways, not drainage, visual impact, nothing but Greenbelt. Not the impact on Birches Green Road, not the impact on the Westacott Way, no highways issues at all, just Greenbelt. So the application now in front of us was submitted under a planning performance agreement for development. So this is for basically the demolition of the existing buildings and the redevelopment of the site for employment buildings. There's 11 buildings in total will be constructed on the site. Those are the new commercial class E, B2 and B8. Surface car parking, service areas, landscaping and associated works. So under the planning performance agreement, we're duty bound to actually take the application to committee, which we've done robustly. And the recommendation is for approval with conditions in the 106 agreement, but also with delegated authority to any minor conditions that we had before. That would happen again if there are needs to amend those conditions. Next slide, please. Next slide again, please. On this, we've got an update sheet, which you'll all have seen. The update sheet is online. This time it's 4 pages long, but all these issues in the update sheet relate to highways. They relate to the road safety audit, and they relate to tracking of vehicles into car parking spaces. Now, on this, unlike Sierra House, where we use internal highways officers in terms of the council's highways DC team, in this one, we commissioned iTransport Limited, which are highway engineers, have their own private practice, but many of whom are former council employees, many from West Sussex County, but that's another matter. So in terms of this, in terms of the update, I'm not going to go through everything, but on it, you'll see that there were so we've had meetings with the applicant and councillors about the impact on Birches Green Road. And we've gone to iTransport and said, there are concerns about the existing impact. And they've come back saying they understand that. This is the second paragraph. On behalf of iTransport, they provided an email response understanding the concerns of the local residents over the impact on Birches Green Road. But on that, of the page, I do understand the concerns of the councillors and the residents, but when you're doing a planning application, it's necessary to do so in accordance with the various policy documents and legislation that govern planning. And then they go on, basically, they have to meet the 3 tests. Those 3 tests in what we know as the Community Infrastructure Levy regs. And it's a 122 test, which all the lawyers, Catriona will tell us. Does it directly relate to development? Is it proportional? Is it necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms? In this instance, bottom of page 2, a request for a scheme of improvements would not satisfy the 3rd test of necessary to make the development acceptable, given that there is an existing enforceable legal restriction. Nor would it satisfy the 1st test, which is directly related, as it fails to enforce the existing restriction. Potentially, it could also be seen as failing the 2nd test of being proportional. Yes, I can speak up. Yeah, the microphone's here. Bear with me. Here we go. Loud and clear, lady in the corner. The second test, let's address an existing situation. The vehicles are unlawfully using a road where a means for the relevant authorities to take action already exists. The refusal of the application on the basis that the proposed development does not seek to address an existing issues on Birches Green Road would likely to be deemed unreasonable. Can you hear me now? Great. Typically, it is these situations, the requirement for an improvement will be better suited to the authority-led highway improvements funded through the Community Infrastructure Levy payment system, as it's these improvements that the SIL system are introduced to seek to address, community improvements that are outside of large infrastructure teams. So basically, the comments made by iTransport are noted. And to that effect, what we're doing is this, in terms of the Office of Recommendation Action is, because it would be unreasonable with the three tests, we're proposing to remove mitigation measures to reduce the volume of traffic and traffic cutting through Birches Green Road, i.e. to reinforce directional signage to and from the business park, to seek to route vehicles along appropriate routes from the draft heads of terms, as this would fail to satisfy the tests in Regulation 122 of the Community Infrastructure Levy. Additionally, we talked about when the report was actually written, the committee report was written, the road safety audit was still in draft form. That road safety audit has now been submitted with the recommendations from the designers. That's been run past iTransport Limited, and they are satisfied with the contents of the road safety audit. Now, the road safety audit looks at all the proposed off-site improvements that are proposed as part of this development. And also the other information was submitted on tracking and access to car parking spaces. So at the end of this, our highway consultants, iTransport Limited, are raising no objection to the proposed development, so it can subject to condition and 106 agreement. So that's what's different. That's the basically up to date from where we are now, from where we were when the committee report was actually drafted. So that's the update. The next slide is going to show us the overview of the recommendation. The site is allocated under policy ED2 of the Borough Local Plan as an established employment site in the Greenbelt for use class E and industrial uses. Use class E is commercial. The proposed full application has addressed the concerns raised by the inspector at the appeal into the previous outline planning application relating to the view along the entrance to Westacott Way and views from the public rights of way by reducing the height of the commercial industrial buildings, their siting on the site, improving the proposed development's relationship with the wider Greenbelt. Other material considerations pertain to the development in the Greenbelt, flood risk, surface water drainage, sustainability, highways, ecology, noise, and air quality are also considered acceptable. The economic benefits of the proposed development are considered to be significant. The off-site highway works within the blue line boundary of the site are considered to be significant. Therefore, it's recommended plan permission be approved, be granted, subject to 106 agreement. Thank you, James. This is the actual proposed development itself, the actual detail. The proposal is for 11 commercial industrial buildings ranging from 10 stories high to 14 stories high. And on that note, the previous refused application was outlined. This is a full application. The previous one had parameter plans for up to 14 stories. This is detailed, ranging from 10 to 14 stories. The proposal would provide 42,541 square meters of floor space at the office park. The new buildings would include air source heat pumps and solar panels. It also includes a green infrastructure network, tree planting, the retention of the large existing pond and woodland on the western part of the site, and the tree belt that surrounds the site. The proposed scheme comprises 427 car parking spaces and 132 cycle spaces. And 20% of the car parking spaces are to have electric vehicle charging points active, And the remaining 80% of the car parking spaces would have ducting, cabling and capacity to enable future installation of charge points in those spaces. And also you'll see later, they're also proposing shower facilities in the buildings for cyclists to use. Next slide, please. This is basically the location plan. You see the red line of the site itself, and to the east of that, you've got the Briggs equipment site, which is outside the red line boundary. Then you've got the blue line, of basically under the ownership of the applicant is Westacott Way. And because of that, the off-site footway, cycleway improvements are along Westacott Way. And the next slide you're going to see is basically the layout. So you've got to the left, to the west, you've got the existing woodland, the ponds and the trees and the tree boundary. They're all good. That's all going to be retained. And the proposal includes enhanced planting, tree planting within the site itself, substantial tree planting within the site itself. Next slide, please. So the key quantifiable economic impacts of the proposal include inward investment into the Maidenhead economy, reversing what is a failing site. There are 7 buildings on the site. I think 2 are actively occupied, 5 are empty. There's a reuse of a strategically located brownfield site with existing infrastructure, bringing an underperforming, inefficient employment site back into productive use. The effective reuse of the brownfield site to address identified employment needs in line with the employment policies of the Borough Local Plan. Generation of 657 high quality jobs during the construction and the operational phases. The creation of targeted training, apprenticeships and work experience opportunities, and spin-off benefits including local supply chains and local community projects. The redevelopment would meet the BREEAM excellent standard and a low carbon operation. So that sets out the economic benefits of the scheme. Next slide, please. So in terms of the summary, so basically the 5 salient points of the concept that underpins the proposed development is to create a mixed use research and development industrial and warehouse park, offering state-of-the-art modern facilities across a range of building sizes to attract new and existing businesses to the area and provide them with the ability to grow their businesses at Maidenhead Office Park. The 11 buildings would range from 10 to 14 stories high. Proposed floor space is 42,541 square meters. The height, layout, and appearance of the development has been driven through feedback provided by officers at pre-app through the planning performance agreement as well, and following comments made by the inspector at the appeal into the previously dismissed scheme, which has been refused. And basically the starting point is that the principle of the commercial business-led development is to be in accordance with the development plan policies, and the principle of development on this site is acceptable. The development is considered to be acceptable in the green belt for the reasons set out in the sections following. Next slide, please. In terms of specific matters, we're looking here at the overall size currently underutilised economic resource being brownfield land and currently experiencing vacancy rates of 77%, increasing to 85% by the end of last year. It was common ground between the appellant and the council at the appeal that the existing office uses on site do not need to be protected. There is no reasonable prospect of reuse consistent with the policy ED2 of the local plan. The appeal decision also confirmed there is no conflict with policy ED25 based on proposed land uses. But the proposed uses are appropriate on that site. And the proposed development represents an increase in the amount of employment floor space on site, should be supported as a matter of principle. The economic needs assessment prepared by Savills, dated May this year, submitted with the application, reconfirms the position agreed with the council during the appeal that there is a pressing need for industrial and employment floor space the site and proposed development would fulfill. And there are no alternative sites that can meet that need. Next slide, please. Since the appeal decision, with the publication of the MPPF, December 24, in terms of change to Chapter 13, protecting greenbelt land, and the updated policy approach applied has confirmed that substantial weight can no longer be applied to harm to openness, which was basically the case of the inspector at the previous appeal that it could. That no longer is the case. The proposed scheme can now be considered appropriate development in the Greenbelt in accordance with paragraph 154G of the MPPF of December 2024. The site falls in the definition of grey belt as defined in Annex 2 of the MPPF December 2024. The proposed scheme can also be considered as appropriate commercial development in the Greenbelt in accordance with paragraph 155 of the National Plan Policy Framework, December 2024. So all the reasons the inspector dismissed the appeal for the previous scheme fall away. Next slide, please. The amendments to the layout of the proposed development compared to the appeal scheme include reduction in the total floor space by 13,000 square metres, from 55,501 square metres to 42,541 square metres gross internal area, which is equivalent to 23% in floor space. The entrance of the site is formed by a tree-lined avenue boulevard with a grass verge pedestrian footpath which continues through the site itself, with the two main intersections, tree-lined avenues, running north-south and east-west through the site itself, creating visual and spatial connectivity. The tree-lined avenues, boulevards, divide the site into 4 distinct developable plots. The proposed development would retain most of the existing western woodland and grassland and the scrub, and the wildflower grassland will be planted and replaced with replacement woodland planting. Next slide, please. So the design and appearance of the buildings on the site has been influenced by the former use of the site for aviation purposes and its location next to White Waltham Airfield. All 11 buildings would have curved roofs to mirror the roofs of the aircraft hangars. The elevational treatment of the commercial industrial buildings will be a combination of flat and profile metal cladding. The entrances to all commercial industrial buildings, all 11 of them, will be framed with vertical bronze finished cladding, projecting feature flashings set within a curtain walling with bronze glazing and bronze finished signage wrapping around the corners of the buildings, which you'll see shortly. The warehouse and production areas will be clad in profiled horizontal grey panels, and the glazing in the offices would have projecting curtain walling fins to reduce solar gain and glazing in the warehouse elevations. Compared to the appeal scheme, the proposal has been amended, reducing the height of the scheme to a maximum of 14 metres high, units 2 and 8. The proposed buildings in the northern boundary would be reduced in height to a range between 10 and 13 metres high. Proposed buildings in the vicinity of the site entrance have been reduced in size and resited to reduce their bulk and mass when viewed from Westacott Way and to open up views southwards and across the site. The building heights are subject to the neighbouring airfield's runway obstacle limitations, surfaces, contours, transitional surfaces, which ensures an appropriate relationship between the building heights and the airfield operations. The reduction in height of the buildings would improve the development's relationship with the wider Greenbelt and when viewed from the surrounding area and the public rights of way. Next slide, please, James. So now we actually see what it's going to look like. This is the view along the boulevard towards units 11, 1 and 2. So you get the feel immediately. It looks like aviation hangars in terms of the design of them, the shape of them, the cladding, but also you've got this public realm, this soft landscaping, public realm works alongside those two. So the site sits within a mature landscape. Next slide, please. The next one is basically a typical view of the entrance and office design. You see the glazed atrium, you see the signage, you see the cladding, it's the smart modern buildings for commercial use. Next slide, please. And this is basically a typical frontage fronting onto that main east-west boulevard. With again, it looks like the White Waltham hangars. It's the aviation design coming through. Next slide, please. And this is just another view coming from east-west through the boulevard. So you get a real feel for the design and appearance of these buildings. There'll be conditions in it in terms of the materials and the quality of those materials too, and the conditions on the landscaping, both hard and soft landscaping. Next slide, please. Next one, I want to show you a host of what we call, these are wireline visualizations. So in red, you can just see that the red outline is the previous outline parameters refuse scheme. And here the white is the proposed scheme. Now, this is from the entrance at Westacott Way. The appeal inspector was concerned about the scale and the massing and the location and the height of the buildings at the entrance. So the applicant has actually, as I said, recited and reduced the height of those. They're in white. So you can see immediately that scale and massing has been reduced dramatically. Next slide, please. Then the next host of slides are going to show you that these buildings don't project above the tree line bounding the site itself, and are actually lower than the parameter outline height of the outline plan, which is in red. So you see the white is the proposed scheme. Again, this is from the east of Westacott Way. The next slide, please. Again, this is west of Westacott Way. These are pretty close to the site. These are looking at different views of the site. So all of these show you how the scheme has been amended, the height of it, the siting of the buildings too. Next slide, please. And this is west of the site. Next slide, please. Again, from the west of the site again. Next slide, please. So all you see is the amendments to the scheme. Almost, next slide, please. Again, next slide. Next slide. Again, everything is below the height of the trees. Next slide, please. And next slide. Great. So that gives you an idea of the work that's actually gone into this and the actual visual impacts in terms of openness. So as we said before, basically in terms of the highway scheme, the highway and transport proposals are policy compliant, and our highway engineers, iTransport, have no objection to it. And those schemes include the parking for 426 parking spaces, the access to those spaces, including 5% of those spaces are accessible parking areas, and 1,100 square meters of development in accordance with the council's parking strategy. So everything fits in with the parking strategy 2004. The parking spaces measure 2.4 meters by 4.8 meters. So that complies with the highway design guide. So that again, policy compliance in terms of the EV charging points, 94 charging points. In terms of, so that complies with sustainability SPD. The event includes a provision of up to 132 cycling spaces. Again, that exceeds the amount of cycling spaces needed. A total of 40 showers are proposed for use by cyclists and pedestrians into using the site every day. So in terms of highways, the scheme is policy compliant. Next slide, please. And those, in terms of the section 106, this is what's being proposed. The Westacott Way is to reduce the speed limit is going to be reduced from 50 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour from the roundabout with the A4 on Westacott Way past Woolley Avenue and beyond to the public rights of way that connect over Westacott Way, a length of approximately 570 meters. South of the right of way, the speed limit will be reduced to 20 miles an hour to the site entrance along Westacott Way. Traffic calming improvements are proposed along Westacott Way, northbound traffic to give to southbound traffic designed to slow vehicles travelling along Westacott Way, particularly vehicles travelling north, approaching the entrance to Woolley Avenue to slow traffic down. Shared priority crossing for pedestrians and cyclists where the rights of way footpath 9 and the NCN 4 crosses Westacott Way, east to west. And also cycle and pedestrian improvements measures along the southern section of Westacott Way to improve accessibility to the site by non-vehicular modes of transport, including the widening of the existing footway along Westacott Way to the 2.0 meters wide, where possible, from the site entrance to footpath 9, a distance of 815 meters, and to remove the centre line and to introduce Dutch-style on-street cycle lanes. Now, all those improvements have been agreed as heads of terms to go to the Section 106 agreement. Next slide, please. So the next two slides are just showing those works, those footpath amendments and widening works along the access road to the A4, but also the next slide will show you also signage to actually reduce the speed limits. Next slide, please, James. That shows the speed limits down to 30 and 20 along Westacott Way, reducing speed limits. Next slide, please. So in terms also of drainage, The site is located entirely within flood zone 1 and considered to be at low risk of flooding. The application has been accompanied by an amended flood risk assessment and surface water drainage strategy in August this year. 2 separate surface water networks are proposed across the site. The first catchment covers most of the site, excluding the northwest corner. The second catchment, northwest corner site, and that was northwest corner site, and all surface water runoff will be drained by a network of pipes interconnected with the attenuation tanks. The tanks will be positioned beneath the car parks. The pipe network would lead to a swale alongside the southern boundary of the site, into a soakaway, and all surface water runoff will be drained by a network of pipes. It's the existing pond in the western part of the site. The lead local flood authority is satisfied with the proposed surface water drainage network, has recommended a condition on that. But more importantly, Thames Water. Now, they've reviewed the additional information submitted by the applicant during the process of the application, has been able to determine there is no longer a need for foul water drainage condition as they'd originally requested. Next slide, please. Ecology and biodiversity net gain. This is very important. The site can't, because of the amount of trees on the site cannot accommodate that 10% biodiversity net gain on site. But what we can do, and what it is proposing to do by means of a section 106, is to provide biodiversity net gain off-site. And that's what this slide is telling us, basically, at Wood Oaks Farm. So this is basically the final details, including the purchase agreement of the preferred habitat pack, would include a biodiversity gain plan, which will be submitted to the local planning authority on the grant of permission for this development. At this stage, it's assured to 1, there's a suitable compensation solution to secure 10% net gain for Maidenhead Office Park, and 2, the preferred location for the habitat bank to secure the 10% net gain is Wood Oaks Farm. In addition to the statutory requirement to deliver 10% biodiversity net gain, in accordance with the requirements of the NPPF December 24 and policy NR2 of the Borough Local Plan, the scheme will demonstrate how the biodiversity value of the site would be enhanced, and such measures will be secured by condition as set out in section 14 of the committee report. Next slide, please. So next is the infrastructure delivery, and that goes again against those 3 tests we referred to before in Regulation 122. Is it necessary to make the development acceptable? Is it directly related to development? And C, does it fairly and reasonably relate in scale to the kind of the development itself? So we're looking here at provision of on-site, and if we can't accommodate all that, off-site, BNG at Wood Oaks Farm, and also off-site highway improvements. But those off-site highway improvements are within the blue line controlled by the applicant. Next slide, please. And next is the conclusion recommendations. These are all the benefits. So all those benefits we had before on the left, harms, we haven't identified any harms from that development. So the benefits on the left, the harms on the right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Before I open this up to the floor, we've got 4 speakers on this one. And if I could firstly call up Irene Jordan, please.
Left one.
Thank you. You've got 3 minutes when you're ready.
Okay. I'm the chair of the Birchett's Green Village Association. The residents of Birchett's Green objected as we were deeply concerned about the impact of the likely additional traffic this development would cause to Birchett's Green Village. We acknowledged the applicant's proposal to get the new application approved by potentially reducing it from a full logistics centre to a 1/3 split between logistics, knowledge sector and light industrial sectors. We are actually not against the development in principle. However, we do have, as we've said, deep concerns regarding the still excessive levels of HGVs and other commercial vehicles proposed from the site. We request that the very long transport data report be reviewed again as it appears unrealistic. We would also like to note that there are no guarantees that the applicant will not change the configuration of the site once the application is passed, so safeguards need to be introduced prior to approval. Despite being a C-classified road in a rural conservation area, Birches Green Road has become a rat run with high volume traffic, currently around 5,500 cars daily, vehicles daily, accompanied by poor driver behaviour. There's a real danger this will increase not only from drivers, commuters avoiding the Westacott Way roundabout, but also from the site's own staff and HGVs and other lorries and potentially rapid delivery vans seeking to use it as a shortcut, which is what happens currently. Birches Green Lane, which is close to the Westacott Way roundabout on the A4, is a single track country road and certainly not suitable for heavy traffic and has an unrealistic 40 miles per hour speed limit. I am surprised this was not assessed as part of the other mileage assessments. We're also concerned about the safety of the route to school for Birches Green Infant School on Birches Green Road. The transport assessment submitted with this application states that there would be minor overall increases in daily vehicles.
Remaining.
Sorry?
1 minute remaining.
All right, okay. We think that the figures were unrealistic. And shockingly, this assessment amounts to more than one HGV every 6 minutes, 24/7, compared to office hours previously. We only received the committee update report today. I only read it this afternoon. And there is a misconception in that report that there has ever been any kind of enforcement or assessment of this current 7.5 tonne weight limit. I'll move straight on to say that if the development does go ahead, we request that conditions be attached that would physically prevent excess traffic coming via Birches Green Road and Lane. We request, one, the installation of ANPR cameras alongside weigh in motion systems to detect overweight vehicles. This could be funded either by the developer or via the community infrastructure levy, which we do believe we should be applicable for. Number 2, lowering the current 7.5 tonne weight limit to 3.5
Thank you,
tonnes,
Irene. Your
which can then
time
be
is up,
added.
I'm afraid.
I've just got one more point. Is that all right? One more point?
No, your time is up.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I next call up Mark Harris, please?
Good evening. I'm Mark Harris, the applicant's town planning consultant, and I'm pleased to be speaking in support of the officer's recommendation for approval. Following the appeal decision last year, Anglesey Capital has worked hard to listen to and address your council's concerns, those of the local community and the inspector's decision. This planning application has taken important steps forward compared to where we were in 2023, when the scheme had generated significant local concern. Those steps include the submission of a full planning application, so the layout, design quality and characteristics of the scheme are clearly understood, a reduction in floor space by 23%, building heights and locations reduced and relocated to reduce impact on the greenbelt in key locations and views, and the land use brief extended to address strong market demand from R&D companies, laboratories and service-orientated businesses. And also, as you've heard, highway design and safety improvements along Westacott Way to benefit local residents, pedestrians and cyclists. This has led to support from some parish councils and recognition that we've now struck the right balance. The rationale for and importance of the regeneration of the office park remains. The scheme is now appropriate development in the Greenbelt, being a grey belt site and supported by national policy. It's a sustainable, previously developed site with excellent existing connections to the road network. The park continues to experience high levels of prolonged vacancy, which will not change. A site that can support hundreds of jobs is currently providing less than 100. It's clearly underutilised and offers a significant opportunity to meet the unmet need for employment floor space in the Royal Borough. The scheme also offers transformative change. It will fully utilise this wasted economic and social resource, encourage inward investment, innovation and job creation. The significant public benefits include approximately 657 new high-quality jobs and enhancement of the town's employment capacity. There'll be targeted local job creation and training.
1 minute remaining.
Targets working with schools colleges and stakeholders. And these are closely aligned with your borough's objectives to have more local people in employment, improving skills and opportunities, and reducing inequality. It will replace dated inefficient buildings with a highly sustainable development that is BREEAM excellent, and it will contribute towards the 10% biodiversity net gain via a landscape-led scheme. These are all significant economic, social, and environmental benefits which can be considered significant weight for a scheme that is policy compliant. And as you've heard this evening from your officer, there is no residual harm and all outstanding objections have been addressed. Should approval be given, we look forward to continuing to work with you, the local community, neighbours and stakeholders on the delivery of this scheme and realising its important benefits. Thank you for listening, and I respectfully request that planning permission is granted in line with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Next up, can I call Councillor Mandy Brown, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak this evening on behalf of the residents of Birches Green Road and Birches Green Lane. I want to begin by drawing your attention to the very real ongoing disruption our residents face due to rat run. This isn't just a matter of inconvenience, it's the daily erosion of their quality of life. The noise and disruption, the damage to the rural tranquility, and the visual intrusion of traffic cutting through our countryside are deeply felt and increasingly intolerable. If this development is granted planning permission tonight, I fear the impact will only worsen. More vehicles will drawn into these quiet lanes, further undermining the safety and amenity of the community. This is not acceptable. I therefore strongly recommend the refusal of this application on the grounds of highway safety and residential amenity. I do not believe the proposed controls and indeed to be skewed through the Section 106 agreement will be affected in directing traffic to the strategic road network. The measures are currently outlined, lack of scope and enforceability needed to be protecting our residents. However, if members are minded to approve the application, then I urge you to strengthen the Section 106 provision. These controls must apply not only to Birches Green Lane, but also to Birches Green Road and the stretch of the A4 that connects them, both of the roads. Furthermore, there must be a clear commitment
1 minute remaining.
to monitor traffic levels post-development. If we see a significant increase in traffic on these roads, the additional avoidance or mitigation measures must be triggered without delay. Please listen to the valid concerns of our residents. This is about preserving the character, safety, and well-being of the community that already endured too much. I trust that you will give this matter a careful consideration it deserves when making your decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Can I call up Councillor Mark Howard, please?
Go turn your mic, yeah.
F1,
Yeah, that one?
3 minutes when you're ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to us. I agree, this site does need redevelopment. I think is that it's not working at the moment and it needs to be made to deliver a better product. I have some slight queries about how a 10-storey building can fit below a tree line, but that's a different matter. But let me bring you to Birches Green. Birches Green is a single lane in each direction road. It's got a single entry primary school with no off-street parking. It's got kids in the roads and it's got small houses and driveways entering all the way along it. but it gets 5,500 vehicles a day. It's unlisted. It's a cut through. And it is a cut through between the A4 and the A406 junctions because people believe it is quicker than going past the front of this development. We believe this isn't caused by the development or its redevelopment. What we are keen to avoid is the fact that the extra traffic caused by the development, not just during its construction phase, but those 500 or 600 people who are going to work there, are now going to be entering the A4 as well. And they're going to be mostly in cars by the 450 odd car parking spaces which were allowed. And they're going to cause offset. So people are going to be encouraged to avoid this extra lump of traffic hitting the A4, just like they are now doing anyway. But it's going to be worse. And they're going to make another cut through and more traffic is going to go down Birches Green Road. So this is now going to become even more attractive as a cut through. So what can we do? What I would like to have happen is that there is a planning condition placed upon this that encourages the council, the developer, to work together to find out a way to actively, physically make this cut through less attractive than it is today.
1 minute remaining.
So our request is not to reject this. It's not to cause other problems, but it is to think of a way to make the local community better and safer. And this is not the development's sole problem. It is the community's problem. So I agree, yes, SIL, S106, everything, but we need a commitment attached to this because this is going to make the situation worse. So thank you. I hope you can consider that.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. That's all the speakers. So now if I can open it up to the floor for any questions that you might have on this application for the officers. Thank you. Councillor Walters.
Madam Chairman, is there a way for you to try and solve, by way of condition, the Birches Green problem?
Have we got options on that?
I know it's different.
I think that's the $1 million question of tonight, isn't it? So it's a strong question to open with. The honest answer is, and I just want to say, I have heard all of the sensitivities, and I completely take that on board. So I'm obviously advising everyone from a purely planning perspective. So just want to really make that clear from the outset. But in terms of what you can and can't do through planning conditions, through planning obligations, they are set out very stringently. Conditions are set out in paragraph 57 of the framework. Obviously, section 106 obligations are set out in regulation 122, like Michael set out. And yes, obviously there's an existing issue there, which you've heard from the public speakers. But the advice that we've got from the highways authorities is this won't essentially tip it over what is already there. So the necessity for doing that wouldn't be fulfilled. So basically, wouldn't meet the legal tests to solve the problems in your own terms. I appreciate that it's a sensitive subject, I do understand that, but that's where planning law sits on the matter.
Madam Chairman, well, this is one of our first, if not first, grey belt applications. And in a way, this is the perfect grey belt site as far as I can make out. It's previously developed land. Do we have a previously developed land chart, what they call it, register? Do we have is it on the brownfield register?
I think that's a question for another time.
Yeah, I just
But
wonder where it was.
I understand that would be a useful thing to have access to, but I think we need to stay on the application for now, but I take your point, that would be something that would be useful for all of us.
This does fit the bill for green belt, unfortunately. It was turned down about a year ago on appeal. Though appeal reasons, some of them have fallen by the wayside, which is a great pity, but there we are. We've got to do what the government say. And this is a perfect grey belt site. Bill Westacott, of course, was a member of this council not so long ago. Well, it probably is a long time ago, actually, but he'll be interested in hearing this sort of debate about the road named after him. But I can't see, unless you can, and I understand the Birchett Green thing. If there's something we can do there, we really should do, but it's not, I know it's not within the preambit of this application. But it would be nice to, the developer's here, he's hearing what has been said, and it'd be nice to know if something could be done. I just can't do it any better than that. But as far as the application is concerned, I think it fits all the latest things, the MPPF 24 and so on and so forth. And I would move approval in accordance with the officer's recommendation. Yep.
Just a very, very quick question for the officers on traffic. There's clearly concerns about traffic, and I do get that. When this site was running sort of full tilt or at full capacity, would it have then generated more, less, similar volumes of traffic to the site that is being proposed? Because it is quite a substantial site. There's a lot of parking on there, and there was formerly a lot of people working there. So the issues highlighted by our two councillors, have we addressed those, or because clearly volumes would increase, but were volumes up at the sort of volume they're likely to get back to?
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the specifics for you, and there's a very good reason for that. And that is obviously because the previous scheme went through the inspectorate process, through the appeals process, where the inspector looked at this use and basically said it wouldn't result in a high-risk impact. So the inspectorate have already undertaken that assessment and looked at exactly the points that you've raised as. And unfortunately, the inspectorate are a higher body than us as officers in the local authority. So their findings on that matter are binding in that respect. But I don't have the definitive numbers to hand, to be honest. They are on the application documentation, but I don't have them to hand to give to you. But like I say, notwithstanding whatever those numbers show, the inspectorate's findings on the previous permission would be binding as a material consideration on us as officers in terms of our recommendation tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. I had actually a quick question when we were talking about the Birchett's Green rat run. There is currently, if I'm right, isn't there a 7.5 ton restriction there already? And are there any other measures that could be considered, like chicanes or anything like that, to prevent larger vehicles at least, rather than just cars?
Yeah, so weight limit restrictions would fall within the Highways Authority capacity. And again, I don't mean to be too sort of, black and white, or, it's just planning in isolation, but that is a jurisdiction that falls to the local Highways Authority, not the development management function of the council. So if, for example, and as we've heard from the residents in the third party speeches tonight, there is an issue there, and that's taken up with the local Highways Authority, then they have the suite of controls in which to, for example, potentially downgrade that classification from a 7.5 ton restriction to lower, if that evidence is there. But that's a pre-existing problem that the Highways Authority would deal with. It wouldn't be generated by the proposal, and that's where the differentiation comes in that regard.
I'm afraid public members can't ask questions, it's only the panel members now. Councillor Bond, please.
Thank you. I agree with the comment that a lot of traffic uses Birchett's Green Road, because if you're driving along the A4 in the direction of Reading, you have to usually wait at the roundabout there at the that end of Birchett's Green Road, and it's surprising how many cars come out of it. I can't think why they do it in normal conditions, because it must be so much easier to drive down to the A4 and come along a free road. Birchett's Green Road is quite a narrow road. But I guess in the rush hour, if people are worried about not being able to get off the bit of the motorway that comes down from High Wycombe onto the A4 because it's, the cars are backed up from the M4. They might use it as a shortcut. And also, there are obviously concerns about lorries using Birch's Green Road. And it says in the report that there is a legally enforceable 7.5 ton limit. I appreciate that's technically correct, but it is quite difficult to enforce that. If you see a big lorry on a road, how do you know which side of 7.5 tons it is? It needs the police to enforce, it needs them to actually pay attention. I can see ways in which residents could monitor the situation and perhaps encourage some action to be taken, but it's not a straightforward thing, and just saying there's a legally enforceable weight limit doesn't really do it justice in practice, I think. Yeah, overall, yes, it's now what's called grey belt, so yes, it's eligible to be fully used. One good thing in the report is it talks about a bus service from Maidenhead, and that's actually a continuation of a bus service because it already exists. And I think it starts from Maidenhead Station, just goes along the A4 into Foundation Park. I know about it because when our previous bus services were run by Thames Valley Buses, if you looked up on the journey planner how to get from one part of Maidenhead to another, it would tell you, go to the A4, catch this bus, which heads to Foundation Park and get off, 3 stops down the way. But it's a private bus, and I got told off for doing that. But there were, passengers. This was sort of mid-morning, I think, when I did this. There were a number of passengers there, so I think that's really good to have that to encourage people, if they're travelling by train to Maidenhead, and simply get on the bus, go down the A4, and they're there. So you're bringing the car, getting involved in traffic. If you're coming from Reading and or Twyford, and you can reach the station easily, or Slough, that's a great thing to do. So yeah, I do have great sympathy with the residents, and I hope something can be done to help in Birch's Green Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Singh?
Yeah, I've just got some, just share some of the concerns, obviously raised it, and I'm just thinking how we can sort of work around that. Traffic is obviously a major issue, has been raised already. This is a big scheme, lots of staff there, but big buildings, there's going to be vehicles coming and going. I know there's, I'm just looking around at what we've put in place already. Obviously, there's a speed reduction there. There's a travel plan, shared travel plan. I'm just thinking, is there anything we can do with regarding the vehicles? Because there's going to be a lot of lorries coming in and out of that site, and residents aren't used to this. I know the existing scheme at the moment, it could probably effectively open tomorrow, refurbish, and they could have lorries coming and going, but we've got a good opportunity here to tighten some of the conditions and protect the residents living around the area, Littlewick, Green, Hurley and Walthams and Birch's Green. Is it possible we could add a condition on there, something to do with the HGVs, like a routing strategy, where we could implement something in there which it can be submitted and approved by the borough, and it's specify the approved routes to and from the site, avoiding Littlewick Green and Birch's Green Lane and these inappropriate roads. Is that a possibility, Michael?
Councillor, hi, I'm just going back to page 1.
Mm-hmm.
Page 1 of the update sheet, HGV's routing, and our colleagues at iTransport are highway consultants who want raised object, and they go at length at basically 1.6.3, 1.6.4, 1.6 about vehicle routes, HGV routing. I just raised that with you. Logical route for HGVs accessing Egerton site from the south is via Westacott Way and Bath Way, gaining access to the strategic road network at junction.
Yeah, junction 9B.
9B of the A4. Yeah, it's set out there. Exactly the routes and everything. There could be potential to investigate TRO to lower weight of vehicle permitted to use Birch's Green Road. Should it become evident that rat running is a problem on this link. However, the presence of existing weight restrictions suggests that these roads have been previously assessed and deemed suitable for vehicles up to 7.5 tonnes.
I understand what you're saying, but there's other routes there as well. If we had a routing strategy that they presented us and we had our own internal highways officers have a look at and approve that, do you think that would be more appropriate? Because we could tighten the conditions? Because that's all fair and well. I see what the report says, but we're just trying to obviously protect the residents and mitigate some of the harm that could be there. There's other things that I'm looking at as well, but that's just one of the limbs of the argument.
Can I bring you in there, James?
I think as a condition, it would fail to meet the test, to be perfectly frank with you. Because one of the tests is about enforceability. And the scenario that would play out, for example, is that if you saw a HGV vehicle moving along a different route, there'll be no way of evidencing that that lorry's come from this site. And that's where the difficulty sticks in doing that. The only thing we could do, and again, this would be your choice as councillors in taking your decision, obviously with our advice as officers, is building something about a suggested HGV routing strategy into the 106. So, for example, it could be a leaflet that gets handed out for persons entering the site, a bit like we do with construction traffic. So saying, don't come this way, basically. Again, very hard to enforce, and that's why I need to advise you. It's probably impossible to enforce, but you may well take the view that something's better than nothing, but that would be your decision to make as councillors.
Okay, so we could say something along the lines of obviously we aim to put the management strategy in place, but with signage and then maybe perhaps have management measures in place there as well, so to ensure compliance and enforcement arrangements, by the site owners, because obviously they're going to have their own management company on board. And we could have also a point of contact for residents living around the area where they could phone the service desk, if there are lorries cutting across the grass, or going down these quiet lanes.
I'll bring you in, James.
Yeah, I think we just have to be mindful of what the scope of what we can do and what we can't do. That makes sense.
That's just what I'm thinking around that area. I mean, we can word it how however we're comfortable, but I think to have some sort of control on site would be sensible, because what you don't want is you don't want a site acting in silo and they let the vehicles go. It's like the old what was it, the old movie, what was it, Cannonball Run, isn't it? Boom, everyone's gone and they go in all directions. You want a proper management plan. Say, look, come out of here, junction 9's that way, you can get Reading that way, M40's the other way. So you haven't got, because if you could have several hundred lorry movements a week coming out of this place, and all you need is a handful of them going past but down one of these residential roads, which could cause serious harm to one of the residents living there, I suppose. That's just one question. Go on.
I'm just coming in, councillors, because I will forget and get to that stage of the evening. So I think what we need to be securing in terms of the heads of terms is basically a vehicle routing strategy that will be made available for occupants of the buildings. And then, like I say, it's akin to how we deal with construction traffic, for example, which is we expect vehicles to come through a certain way. Again, question about how you can enforce it, but again, something's better than nothing, I think, and it's an education piece.
Yes, thank you. Okay, and then there was just a couple more points. Wood Oaks Farm.
Can I just stop you there, Councillor Singh, because Adrian has just put his hand up, so you might have something to answer on your first point, then I'll come straight back to you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was just going to say, I mean, I am very cautious about trying to do vehicle routing strategies through planning, simply due to the fact that they're pretty much impossible to enforce, because you can't. It's pretty fundamental. You can't control the movement of a lorry on the public highway. They have a right to move there. And the thing I've always struggled with them is when you do it, you set an expectation to the residents that something will be done if there's an issue, whereas the reality is that we wouldn't have any powers to do it. So it was just to flag that concern. I have had issues in the past where councils have tried to do this, and the result is disappointed residents because they feel we've tried to commit to doing something, but we haven't been able to do it. I don't know if it's feasible with the particular scheme and the layout, but I do know quite often these schemes have security at the entrance points, because quite often they have some kind of security booth at the entrance point. And I don't know if there might be something that could be done around a management plan for the release of lorries onto the highway, possibly just so that rather than, if there's like, in the unlikely event that there's 5 or 6 lorries all ready to leave at the same time, that they delay a couple of them to spread it out more evenly or something. So I'm just raising that as possibly a potential another route to try and deal with some of these concerns.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, through you, Chair. I mean, I'm happy to offer officers to work with that and something that they're comfortable with. I mean, it could be even be a case of having some signage at the exit gates, directing lorries, you know, to the right way to go, because I mean, you know, some of these boys are going to be coming out 5, 6 in the morning. All it takes is a wrong turn, and then, you know, you've got bedlam there. That I can leave that with you guys. The other points, a question I wanted to ask is about Wood Oaks Farm. That's where the B&G is going to. Where can you tell me about that? Where is that? What is that near the site?
The details, Councillor, in the committee report said it quite clear that the biodiversity net gain, what the applicant's actually done, he's actually gone out and looked at a host of these potential sites to provide this off-site BNG. And what we've done, we haven't used our internal ecology officers on this. We have used an external consultant, John Wemham, who's actually verified in terms of the information on-site and off-site BNG, where that is. And in terms of the 106, that's going to set out how that's delivered. So I've not got a plan here to show you of where Wood Oaks Farm is, but the details of what and where are in the committee report. It lists a host of other sites that the applicant has looked at and considered to provide off-site BNG. And this is going a long way further than most applicants do. If they can't provide BNG on-site, they talk spuriously about off-site, but this is different. This applicant has actually looked at a specific tangible sites for off-site provision.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know. I'm looking in 10.178. It doesn't give you much information. It says that the habitat banks provide a high and medium distinctiveness habitat and hedgerow to
that will be set out quite clearly in the section 106. At the moment, that's a heads of terms agreed between ourselves and the applicant, and the detail of that will be drawn up in the 106 agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I think like good practice is to have BNG close to the site as possible. This Wood Oaks Farm, I understand that's in Hertfordshire and Dunstable, and that's.
I think there's a local one as well. I did find it on a map. I'm sure it was.
Is it local? Is it?
Yes.
My understanding is in Hertfordshire, but no.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, the way that B&G works, and again, this is mandated by the Environment Act at national level, it's the applicants have a requirement to meet their 10% biodiversity net gain. How they make it work is actually a matter of discretion to them. And yes, obviously it's favourable to provide B&G mitigation land nearer to the site, preferably within the borough. And the charging schedules that generally go with that means they pay less for mitigating their B&G requirements as close to the site as possible. So there's a sort of like a economic incentive to do that. But theoretically, an applicant could, for example, mitigate their site in Scotland and still accord with the legislation, although it'd be bizarre, and it would probably make most schemes unviable. So it's actually controlled by basically through the charging of credits for that. There's also other intricate details about monitoring arrangements, etc., which make it easier to go nearer the site. But unfortunately, there's nothing we can do as a local authority, say for ensuring that 10% net gain is achieved. But it kind of goes without saying that people go for the commercially viable solution, which would generally be closest to home.
Okay. But okay, that's disappointing if it's obviously not close, but it is what it is. Because it's obviously the impact is local. The section 106 agreement. Now, I was just looking about this apprenticeship scheme and skills. I understand that they're committing to some work. Some of the staff they're going to be pulling from the job centre and locally. We have had a condition on previously. I mean, we had this with the Brave Film Studios. There is a lot of staff, and I'm not sure how obviously they're going to need resources, obviously, to support them. When we did the Brave Film Studios, we asked for an employment skills plan to be implemented. Is that one of the conditions we got here on this site? Is that something we can put on this site as well? In terms of the apprenticeships and
that's
part of section 106.
It's condition 20 of the draft decision notice, which specifically refers to employment and skills plans. And there's a criteria sat within that, and specifically criteria D talks about apprenticeships. It covers a whole lot of other things as well, which I think is an eminently positive thing. And for example, work experience with those aged 14 to 16, 16 to 19 and 19 plus, school and college visits. So it will all be encompassed within that, including apprenticeships.
Yeah. Do you think there'll be any council resources been taken up as part of that? Would the council be involved? Because what happened before was we had this with the film studios, and we had to employ a council employee for 3 years. And that was part of the section 106 agreement. Would there be any burden on the borough to support them in terms of this? Because at the moment, it just says East Berkshire Community Learning Skills Service and the Job Centre Plus, but I'm not sure how much outreach they'll have. So is it possible to tie up something in the 106 agreement where we can employ an officer, a careers officer for 3 years to similar to like what we did in Brave Film Studios to support them with the ambition, because it's a lot of work there, and it's going to, I think we're going to have to get involved. And obviously we've got the economic team.
Yeah, so essentially what we're talking about here is monitoring really of the condition, and that would normally just get undertaken as per normal monitoring, to be perfectly honest with you. When you go above that, it's for specific reasons, and that makes sense. And obviously the example that you've cited in terms of Brave Film Studios is a very unique sector, industry, etc., where you could justify doing that, if that makes sense. But the employment and skills plan is a fairly standard condition, and it's essentially discharged and monitored in the same way that any other planning condition would do. So we wouldn't have any justification in terms of necessity, unless, do correct me if I'm wrong, of going above what we would normally do in that regard.
Yeah, when you put the slides, I don't know if you can put slides back up there. It stated about the jobs which will be created, and there was a specific term there which was I think it was highly skilled jobs in science, research and development. Was it? I think that's quite a specialist area, isn't it?
Councillor Singh, while they're looking it up, would you mind if I go to Jeff?
Yeah, sure.
Councillor Hill, because he's been waiting quite a while.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just a small point on the traffic. Reading the traffic report on the Royal Borough website, the punchline is that the overall increase in HGV movements will be 196 two-way HGV movements spread throughout the day. And the only thing I can think of there is maybe a traffic regulation order on the road through Birches Green to stop HGVs. I think that's, well, I know that's the only thing that can be done. Whether that would work in a highways context, I don't know, because you have to look at the whole network. So you can do what we like at the gate, but traffic regulation orders are the way to do it. If it works for the whole network, because the network mustn't seize up, we must be able to go other routes. Coming back to the application as a whole, apart from the additional load on Birches Green, which is unfortunate, I actually like it. I know I did vote in favour of the other one, the previous one, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I think it's a good application. It does clear off a lot of the objections that were raised before, and a lot of the comments from the inspector have been addressed, pretty much all of them, by the applicant. So I'm going to second Councillor Waters' motion, which is to support the officer recommendation to approve this application.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. So there's a couple of points there. Councillor Hill mentioned the traffic regulation order, and also we've still got to come back to Councillor Singh on his points as well, if we're ready with.
So I think just turning first to Councillor Hill's point, I think there's not really much more I can add, but I think you've explained it eloquently, which is it is a TRO matter, and that falls to the Highways Authority to deal with that if those tests are met. So, so I say we always explain to members, you do have unfortunately a very specific prism to look at the planning application through, and sometimes that's difficult and uncomfortable. I do understand that, but like you say, the TRO process and the tonnage of the roads is a matter for the local Highways Authority. Like I say, if that wants to be explored externally or beyond the realm of a planning application, that's a matter to be taken up separately. Just going back to Councillor Singh's point about monitoring arrangements, obviously the condition does talk about measures and timescales for the quarterly monitoring of the performance target set out in the plan. So we could, for example, include in section 106 a monitoring fee for that. I couldn't say what that would be off the top of my head, but again, it would have to meet the Reg 122 tests. But if you were happy to, that'd be something we'd ask to defer back to officers to agree as part of the section 106 negotiations.
Yep. Councillor Singh, I'm just going to bring in Catriona, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Yes, I just agree with what James has said. In relation to that condition 20, it's a very comprehensive condition, and it's broken down by phases, both during construction and operational stages of the development. And it does provide, as James said, measures and timescales for quarterly monitoring of performance targets. So I'm not sure, in light of that comprehensive condition, what the benefit would be in any event to that there be funding of any post at the council, but we could seek a monitoring fee through the 106. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Catriona. Did you have anything to add on that point? Because I'm just conscious there's got Councillor Bond and wait. No, that was about your question about the monitoring. Yeah.
Skills.
The skills, the employment skills. Yeah, not the traffic.
So just repeat that. So is Catriona saying that we can't? That's not appropriate to have an officer part of the Section 106 agreement to deal with the employment of the apprenticeships.
Did you want?
Yeah, so monitoring officer or monitoring fee, basically. because obviously sometimes it's covered by a different monitoring officer. For the employment and skills, absolutely fine.
It's fine, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just not the traffic, so I think I've just covered
Yeah,
Councillor Hill's
thank
point
you.
about that
Yeah,
separately.
so let's add that condition on.
It's a 106 obligation, yeah.
Yeah, as a careers officer.
I think we'd have to do it as a monitoring fee because we have monitoring officers in the council
Yeah.
that monitor these conditions. So, so you wouldn't necessarily have a post of a specific person just to look after one matter where it gets reported probably once every quarter.
Very tough getting, all of those apprenticeships filled up in this highly skilled research and development post.
We've got monitoring officers in the council, so
Okay.
so it would go to
It's up
continue from that
to,
post.
the members who put the motion forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sayant. Can I bring in Adrian? He had his hand up as well. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, it's probably covering over the same ground that I think James just covered fairly well, but I know Councillor Singh referred to the Brave Film Studios, and that was a somewhat unique situation to do with the application and the specifics of the application, and indeed a lot of the benefits that the committee were considering to do with Bray Studios were also to do with linked things such as, filming, other filming happening in the borough elsewhere other than the borough. So there was quite a detailed and involved discussion behind the scenes with that one between the economic development team and the applicant to work out precisely what the level of support was and what the impacts would be and how to generate the benefits that were talked about. But that is very different to the nature of this scheme, and none of those discussions have happened for that reason. As James says, I think this is much more of a generic. We would want to monitor and make sure that they're doing what they say they will, but the likelihood is that those skill schemes and employment benefits are going to be delivered between collaborations between the developer and colleges and Job Centre Plus and things, rather than drawing on council resources in the same way as the film studio one did. So I think the advice that James and Catriona have given is absolutely correct, in that I think a fee to monitor it and make sure it's happening is fine, but pushing beyond that, I don't think we have the evidence for. But they're the reasons, and I thought it was useful to try and explain the difference between this and Bray.
Thank you, Adrian. Councillor Bond.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick comments. My one visit to the site was for the Easter 10 race, which I hope will continue. It was great for them to host the race. And I therefore had a chance to, I wasn't thinking of being here tonight, but I was aware that the trees and the shrubbery around the border of the site are really quite effective at screening it. And I think that is quite important, that the developers, genuinely seek to make sure that is continuous. The other point, more I suppose for residents really, about monitoring vehicles on Birch's Green Road is that if you have, say, the ABC Logistics company takes up one of the buildings on the site, and you notice big lorries coming down Birch's Green Road with ABC Logistics on the side, And I know one case where that was happening, that a particular company, their lorries were going through a weight limit, and so somebody contacted the company and said, you shouldn't be doing this, and I believe it helped. So that's one effective way of dealing with possible problems. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a communication piece there, I agree. Councillor Douglas.
Just a quick one, and sort of off the back of what colleague Councillor Singh's been talking about, monitoring fee, monitoring officer to do monitoring, and so on. I'll take everyone's point. It's not the same as Bray. Doesn't justify having a full-time member of staff in the council to monitor this. That sounds reasonable to me. But on the flip side, the monitoring fee, the Section 106 agreed monitoring fee of £650 feels like not a lot of money to cover the quite extensive condition monitoring that we're going to need, particularly on this condition 20. And I wonder if Councillor Walters and Councillor Hill will consider amending or at least sort of changing the resolution to sort of direct the officers to require a higher fee than that. I mean, 10 times that wouldn't seem unreasonable to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the £650 fee is for the monitoring of the 106 overall, but this would be a separate insertion specifically for this. And the reason why we do that is because, again, part of the test means that that money has to be spent on that specific purpose. So it goes in as a separate addition, and it can only be spent on that amount, basically. So yeah, it would be slightly different. I can't give you the amount because I don't have it to hand, but it will be as part of our standard schedule, basically. So.
That's great. So it's not been agreed yet? Do you mean yes, that way you can't give it to us, or we just don't have it available in this meeting?
No, because basically it's just come up in the meeting. So
we're leaving that delegated officers to agree with the applicant. I'm fine with that. If that's the case. Thank you.
And Councillor Singh, very quickly.
Thank you.
Conscious of time.
Just to finish up on that, because it is an important item. There's no figures in there of how many apprenticeships are going to be delivered on the condition. So on there, can we have some sort of figures, or is there a?
I think then you could actually go the wrong way. Either way, it's probably best to leave the figures out.
Yeah, so if we leave it to you, I mean, they could have one apprenticeship. Yeah, they could employ one kid and job done. There you go. So could you put? Is there a formula that you could use to work something and agree something with them, so we could delegate that to you?
Yeah, the reason why we don't, and I'll just forgive my tongue in cheekness, but if we've got one apprenticeship done, that's one more person with a new set of skills. That's obviously a positive thing. The reason why we don't mandate a certain amount is we want flexibility there, basically. So say, for example, and I'll give you a hypothetical here, but if we mandated X amount of apprenticeships, it would may then, for example, cap you for not having more, or it may restrict other forms of condition 20 coming forward as well. So we tend to like what the market requirements are, what the market demands are. So by way of a bit of context, and we'll come back to the correct point, but you will see certain trends in the environment and in the working practices of certain professions wanting to come forward. I've got some feedback away. There we go. I hope that's better. So you will see certain trends coming forward in certain industries, and that's why that condition is designed in its ways to be more responsive to what the market requirements are. So that's why we don't be that prescriptive, if that makes sense, in the manner that you've described.
Thank you, James. I've got no one else on my screen, so I think we're ready to go to the vote. Lawrence?
Sure thing, Chair. Let's get this closer. So the motion on the table is to grant planning permission on the satisfactory completion of a Section 106 agreement as per offer recommendation and amendments shown in the update sheet, with the addition of a vehicle routing strategy via condition and monitoring fee for employment skills plan and in the legal agreement. Is that right, James? This is proposed by Councillor Walters and seconded by Councillor Jeff Hill. I'll take a name vote. Please state your vote clearly. So, Councillor Bond. Thank you. Councillor Douglas. Thank you. Councillor Hill. Thank you. Councillor Martin. Thank you. Councillor Singh. Thank you. And Councillor Walters. Thank you. That's six votes in favour. Unanimously approved. Motion passes.
Thank you, Lawrence. We've got one final agenda item tonight, and that's item number 6. Are we happy to note the appeals and planning decision report? Are we all happy? Yeah, I think so. There's no contentions. We're all happy. Lovely. That's the meeting closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.